It's Skrionk, a Godzilla movie marathon where we're stomping through Godzilla's filmography. I'm Derek, and I've seen all the Godzilla movies.
And I'm Doug, and I've seen 32 Godzilla movies.
And we're talking about the 13th film in the Godzilla franchise, the first appearance of Megalon and Godzilla's buddy Jet Jaguar, and the first Godzilla film to air on Mystery Science Theater 3000. Godzilla versus Megalon, also known as Gojira Tai Megaro. Makes sense what that translates to. Released in the US on March 17th, 1973. Directed by Jun Fukuda with a story by Shinichi Sekuzawa, a screenplay by Jun Fukuda, special effects by Toyoshi Nakano, produced by Tomoyuki Tanaka, and a score by Richiro Manabe. Of course, I'd like to take a quick moment to thank our spectacular patrons, Bo, Carl, Katie, Jason, Zoe, James, Keith, Cody, Toby, Hamish, Blake, Jace, Joe, David W., David A., Russ, Christian, Reed, Ben, Stuart, Will, and Marilee.
Thank you.
We do have a guest today for this movie where Godzilla just hangs out with a guy, obviously. We have a writer for Crooked Marquee and Werewolf News, Craig J. Clark. How is it going, Craig?
It is going well. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this. I've been a big fan of this movie for a while, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah. You specifically came to me specifically asking for this movie, so I'm going to have plenty of questions about your history with it. But to start, what is your history with Godzilla?
Well, it started with Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. That was the first one I ever saw on television. I think that was just, if you're a certain age, that's probably going to be your first Godzilla movie, because I think it was just on TV a lot. And then I had my exposure to Godzilla versus the Sea Monster and Godzilla versus Megalon on Mystery Science Theater. Basically, I've got these weird late 60s, early 70s Godzillas as being my baseline for knowledge of him. And that wasn't until I saw the original Gojira when they re-released it in theaters on its 50th anniversary in 2004. So I saw it on the big screen. I was really majorly impressed. And from there, I was just sort of like, okay, I gotta see more of these things. And over time, I just got into kaiju movies in general. Like, one of my favorites is Shochiku's The X from Outer Space, which is just insane. And I think I kind of found I was gravitating toward the more unusual and sometimes some might say goofy movies in these franchises. So X from Outer Space with, Space Monster Jalala definitely qualifies as that. Then I got caught up on a lot of the Toho's kaiju films on Filmstruck before Filmstruck went away. But the real floodgate for me started in 2023 when Shin Kamen Rider came out. And that unlocked this whole tokusatsu mania, and of course Criterion had all the other Godzilla films. So over this course of like a couple years, I just knocked them all out. And
Nice.
and I actually wrote an article for Crooked Marquee for Godzilla's 70th anniversary. And in the lead up to that, I said, okay, let's knock out Heisei, let's knock out Millennium, let's knock out everything. Because I also seen Shin Godzilla and loved that one. And so it was just a matter of, well, I'm like 80% of the way there. Why don't I just get to 100%?
Oh, yeah.
I also wrote an article on Gamera for its 60th anniversary last year. So that was, it was kind of nice. And, I was very familiar with those again through the Mystery Science Theater episodes. But I said, you know what? I need to see these without a guy in two robots talking over them to fully appreciate them. And, and I found, some of them very, very good. Some of them a little weaker than others. But
sure,
as with, when I watched Godzilla vs. Megalon, and I watched it on Criterion, they give you the option. You can watch it in the Japanese or the English dub. And watching it in the Japanese makes a difference, shockingly enough. And same with, I just finished watching it literally before we started this podcast. I rewatched the Mystery Science Theater version of Godzilla versus Megalon for the first time in like 2 decades. And the reason I know that is because I go on Letterboxd and I log everything I watch. It was 2006, so
I love that. I love that. We're gonna definitely have to have a conversation about Mystery Science Theater in a bit because that is like very important to this movie's legacy.
hmm
What exactly drew you to this one? Why was this the one that you really felt like you wanted to talk about?
Well, part of it I think comes from that tokusatsu connection because when I was watching a lot of the Kamen Rider and Ultraman series. I watched Ultra Q and so all these different things.
Right.
And in the back of my head, I said, but isn't there that Godzilla movie where there's a robot which is basically Ultraman in a Godzilla movie? And
Right.
so I sort of, got a little fixated on Jet Jaguar. And I even found like 2 years ago, I was in a record store, and they had a bunch of Super 7 figures, and they had the Super 7 Jet Jaguar. And I'm like, okay, you're coming
Right.
home with me, buddy. And there was a time on Blue Sky where Jet Jaguar was my avatar, so it was just sort of like,
Hell yeah.
I just love the
Yeah.
guy. He's just, he's incredible design. I love the way he's used in the movie. He sort of, he is just so, I think the experience of watching Godzilla versus Megalon, if Jack Jaguar wasn't in there, it would be sort of like, okay, this is just another Godzilla movie. Jet Jaguar
Right.
just brings it to another level.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think there's going to be a lot to talk about with how this movie plays and stands out from other Godzilla movies because of Jet Jaguar specifically. Doug,
Hey.
so you had familiarity with Jet Jaguar in that he was a guy that you thought was named Megalon that Godzilla talked to per our last episode. So what are your feelings now having watched this movie for the first time?
Well, Jet Jaguar is a guy, and Megalon is not a guy. Megalon is a bug that I had never seen before. So I don't know if I told this story on the podcast or not, but last year you had visited where I live, and we hung out for a little bit. And towards the end of the night, after we had been drinking a little bit, and now I know it's because you had gotten, I think, artwork of Gigan or something. You'd seen something about Gigan, and then turned to me and said, "Hey, do you know what Gigan is?" And I was like, "Yeah, I totally know what Gigan is." And that one I knew, and I got right. And then you asked me if I knew what Megalon was, and I was like, "Yeah, totally. I absolutely know what Megalon is because it's the guy that constantly shows up every time I see Godzilla versus Megalon." So Megalon's like a guy. He's like an Ultraman guy. And so I fully thought that this whole time, had no idea that I was getting two new characters here. So basically, like from the jump, the moment they show the guy and call him not Megalon, I was like, I have no idea what I'm in for. And there are plenty of surprises even beyond that. So I thought this was a lot of fun. And a big piece of that is I truly just, I didn't know anything about this movie. More so even than I think a lot of the movies we've watched. I truly knew like nothing about this one.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think the Jet Jaguar aspect does overshadow the titular Megalon in this, funny enough, which isn't to say that I think Megalon is like not a cool kaiju, but it's very unique. This this is the Godzilla movie that just has a Toku hero in it, which makes it really, really unique. I think the backstory behind this one is really interesting. Because the movie is kind of born out of that boom of Toku TV popularity in the 70s. Like Ultraman obviously had already been happening for a while, but like the 70s is when you get like a lot of the Toei ones like Kamen Rider and Yazoo Man and Kikaider. Like Spectre Man is also popular. Like you're getting a big influx of these Toku heroes at the time, and at the same time like theatrical Toku and kaiju films are like constantly on decline in audiences. So Toho was like, okay, well, we're going to capitalize on that. Why don't we make a Godzilla film by way of a Toku hero show? So they approach it specifically with this idea of like Godzilla is a lovable superhero, specifically like make him unambiguously that, but then also a humanoid suited character that's a hero. Like, so this movie, the intention for it was to kind of look and feel like a Toku TV show, but on a big screen, What's really interesting with Jet Jaguar specifically, well, we can talk about like a lot of the specifics about the design and the suit and all that stuff a little bit later, but I think the movie being what it is, I think is very, very grounded in the creation of Jet Jaguar and how he was created, because in 1971, Toho and the Seiyu store chain sponsored a children's monster design contest, and the grand prize winner was this boy named Masaki Sano and his monster, who was revealed on TV. Now, this monster was named Red Oron or Red Alone, depending on how you translate it. This was a monster that they announced would appear in a Godzilla movie.
Ooh.
And I will send you this monster's design.
Ooh, I'm so excited. Whoa.
So this monster, it's pretty cool. It's like a winged, like dragon-ish creature. It's hard to like get a good look at it, obviously, because it's not a monster that actually ended up in a movie. But I think if you look at it, you could recognize on the torso area and the color scheme that it kind of looks really recognizable from that regard. So basically, the kid wins the contest, but they just kind of use it as a launching pad. So once the movie starts going to production, Teruyoshi Nakano just like kind of redesigns the character, basically. Once they have this idea for like wanting to riff on Toku heroes, I think even in like one of the script drafts of it, like they refer to their Toku hero as a Kamen Rider like robot, and they specifically are intending it to be like a wetsuit based design, like Ultraman style hero. So like they fully redesign it to look like a man, basically, to specifically riff on Ultraman. I think they're also inspired by like Tetsujin 28 Go, like a radio controlled robot hero, which is how they land on like a robot that looks like Ultraman, but maybe kind of fights like Kamen Rider. And that's how we end up getting to Jet Jaguar, basically.
It's still pretty remarkable how much of the kid's design ends up in Jet Jaguar in some way, shape, or form. Like even just with regards to like color cues or like the blue foldy neck, Jet Jaguar has that.
Oh yeah,
sort of like
it's more like a rush.
Yeah, like the sort of like spikes on the wings, the yellow spikes on the like red wings. He has like yellow shoulder. Like there's actually quite a lot in there. It's kind of impressive.
Yeah. I don't know the truth in this or not, but like there's some places that say that when they showed the kid like the final design for Jet Jaguar, he got really upset about it because it wasn't what he designed.
I mean,
fair.
I would probably be pretty upset too.
It's a weird tangent. There was a period when Jim Davis, the creator of Garfield, had this other comic strip called U.S. Acres, and he did a contest at one point where like he said, I want a kid to design a character to be in my comic strip, and he got like a bunch of, I don't know, thousands of submissions. He chose one, and then literally had, did this big reveal. Here's the new character. Hey, here he is. And if you looked at the drawing that the kid had submitted and the drawing that Jim Davis put in U.S. Acres, it's like, that's totally not the same character.
It's so funny. I mean, like it's really interesting because it's just like, kids kids aren't necessarily like as skilled of designers as like a professional concept artist is. But so like I understand why that happens, but at the same time, if you're having the contest, like part of the fun should be using their design. And sometimes it does actually like work out really well. I think I know what you're thinking, Doug.
I feel like there's a sweet spot where like the drawing has to communicate like the concept, but needs to be like just kiddie, not skillful enough that you can like take liberties and no one can be like mad at you. There's a recent one for Super Sentai.
I was just pulling that up to look at it too. Yeah,
it's incredible. Yeah. It's actually really good. Like they had a contest to design a Red Ranger or a Red Sentai team member. And there was a kid who designed sort of like an origami themed Red Ranger, and it was a cool concept and it was a cool drawing, but obviously it wasn't like a perfectly rendered drawing. And the suit they made like very much reflects what the kid drew, but obviously has to fit into sort of like a real costume.
Yeah.
And this to me is like an extreme success story for like a character design contest. I think this I can never remember the name because it's actually hard to say because it's like an origami name. But I think this looks so cool. So it can work. It can work.
It can happen.
I think you gotta be open to it,
I honestly think that if they had not been on this like tear about trying to mimic like Toku TV heroes, this monster probably would have worked just in a Godzilla movie without being heavily redesigned. I think it's because they needed it to be a Toku hero. Like this guy couldn't be what they wanted it to be, and they just kind of used it as a background.
Yeah. Although interestingly enough, I mean, there is no human equivalent of Jet Jaguar. It's not like there's somebody who turns into
True.
Jet Jaguar. It's just we've got a robot. Isn't it cool? And that's basically the end of it, you know?
That's a good point. That is like an interesting choice. Like I know there's like anime influences, but you would think they would have gone full on the henshin part of it. Like it is surprising that they didn't just have one of their characters just be able to turn into Jet Jaguar. It is really fascinating that they went in that direction. One of the things I think is interesting about this movie too, that is important to its story of existence, is like just how quickly I think it was produced. According to Nakanos and stuff that he said in interviews, is that like the movie, I don't know exactly the details of this because I don't think he remembers, and documentation, all this stuff is lost, but like there's a possibility that like this movie was kind of a last minute replacement for another movie that they had been developing. The theory, I think, is there's a movie that had been kicking around called Godzilla versus the Red Moon, which sounds really interesting. It's like literally about moon monsters. Put a pin in that. We'll talk about it on like a Patreon unmade Godzilla films episode, because there's lots of talk about with it. But like, I think that people have theorized that that was a movie that they were potentially having in like pre-production, and then cancel that and kind of reworked it at the last minute to then be like Megalon and start getting pitches for that. Because what ended up happening is that like they actually only ended up having like 3 weeks to film the movie, and they didn't even have full scripts for it. Like Shinichi Sekizawa did some drafts, and that's where he sort of comes up with bringing in the Megalon kaiju that was originally being pitched for the previous movie, Godzilla versus Gigan. Like that gets brought in, and they write the sort of Jet Jaguar story. But that all is like just in sort of script treatments that Sekizawa does. And then Jun Fukuda, the reason he has that screenplay credit is because he basically just kind of has to hastily rewrite the script from Sekizawa's ideas right as they go into filming. And then they film for like a month basically to knock this out, which is just like really wild. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the amazing thing is, I mean, you can tell that they had, I mean, I think you can count the number of members of the cast on two hands. There really is not a lot of people in this movie.
Yeah, it's really wild. Like, it's kind of surreal watching this, how empty it is. I think that makes the movie interesting. But like, it is wild how slim it is. I mean, a lot of that is also to do with the budget. The budget is continually going down. I couldn't find like what the actual budget for this movie was, but like confirmed. But a lot of the stuff that's theorized is that there are reports people have found where Toho was really pushing for budgets to go from like what was around like 200 million yen around Destroy All Monsters. They really wanted these movies to be more like 30 million yen, which is like,
that's a bit of a cut.
That's a stark difference. I don't know exactly what the budget for this movie was, but that's what they were aiming for. And this movie is definitely on the lower tier of budgets for like Showa era movies. So like they were working with very, very little. There's only like technically two live action sets in this movie, like for what the humans are on, like the inventor, like Goro's house, and then that one like idol, like altar at Seatopia. That's it. Like everything else is just like wherever they could film on a road and back in like a quarry. That's what they're doing. Yeah. They're also like, this is wild to me. They had such a strict limit on like the amount of the feet of film they could use, that they put that limit on them. So like they had to do everything within a certain range, which means that like a lot of the stuff that they did was just in one take because they were afraid of running out of film. So like, yeah. There's some other weird stuff, I think, from even in the editing room that was rushed. Like it's kind of a famous thing that you don't see anymore because it's been fixed in any cut you can watch now. But for a while, like the actual cut of the movie that was cycled around had like an error in it where you would see the actors like for one scene waiting for the director to call action before walking into place. Like that's been fixed. Like I think wherever you watch it now, you're not going to see that. But like anywhere you read like mentions like, if you were around watching the movie at the time, you probably saw that version of it.
Have they successfully like eradicated that from the planet? Like is there like, can you watch that scene anymore?
I'm probably somewhere. I'm sure it's available somewhere. Yeah, I imagine.
It's not the Mystery Science Theater version, I can tell you that much.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, and what's weird is that like there's a bunch of different cuts of this movie, because even like the Mystery Science Theater version is like a shorter version of the movie. There's other cuts that were released. Actually, I'll talk about this now because this is all really interesting. Like the US release is really fascinating because this is a movie that was like hugely popular in the US, and a big reason for that was like some of the different cuts that fell into public domain at a certain point, which is really wild. So like the movie happens in Japan and it's like whatever, I think people recognize that it's cheap, it does fine with kids, but it doesn't make a ton of money. But in the US, over like the few years after it releases, the independent distributor Cinema Shares International was like, we can actually like really push this as like a kids movie. So they do this like big campaign blitz that's bigger marketing than like the last few movies have had. They have like a big Godzilla footprint outside of Madison Square Garden for the Democratic National Convention, and give out a bunch of like Godzilla for President buttons and have banners hung up for that. Which is
that's pretty wild. Yeah.
They had like Godzilla and Megalon cutouts that they'd have on cars that would drive around in other markets outside of New York. And famously, there's the American poster. They're riffing on the Dino De Laurentiis King Kong movie. So they have this poster where Godzilla and Megalon are fighting on a very familiar location.
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised. So the default poster on Letterboxd is this, and I was so confused when I went to log this, and I was like, why are they on the Twin Towers? And this kind of explains it.
They're on the Twin Towers.
Sort of, a little bit.
Yeah. They did everything they could to push it, and it does actually succeed. This movie does like really well, like in American theaters at the time. Like it's one of the better performing Godzilla movies from the Showa era in the US, just because of this marketing blitz, honestly. And I do think they also push it as a children's movie, so it ends up getting decent reviews because reviewers in America are looking at it from the lens of it being a movie for kids. And if you're watching it through that lens, it's like, oh, this is a really charming, weird, kind of fun, silly movie, you know? So it actually ends up having a really a kind of a good reputation in that regard in the US. But the reason I went on this, I went to this direction is because like there's also these different cuts of the movie that end up existing because they cut it down a little bit to give it a G rating. So any semblance of violence from the original version of it is cut out. So there's that version of it that is pushing the G rating to get as many kids in theaters as possible. But then there's another cut of the movie that's cut down to 48 minutes because they want to air it in an hour time slot on NBC in 1977. Wow. This is like it's the first Godzilla movie to like have a primetime US network television premiere. What's fun about it, and the reason that they needed to cut it down to 48 minutes, is because they had interstitials around it that were hosted by John Belushi in a Godzilla suit.
Stop. What?
This is very true. This is all true. Yes, that happened.
I just sent you a screenshot if you want to get the vibe of what these interstitials look like.
Yeah, that's actually from an episode of Saturday Night Live. They had actually created the Godzilla suit for SNL, so it was just around. So they said, well, yeah.
This is so funny and amazing, and the only thing that's sad about it is that you cannot tell from the photo that John Belushi is the person inside. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah. It's really fascinating.
Whoa.
So like there's that cut of the movie. And then there's also another cut that was going around that was like a 79-minute version. And what's interesting about the 79-minute version is that I don't quite understand how the right stuff works for this, but like somehow someone forgot to like get the correct copyright protection on it. So specifically this English 79-minute version very shortly fell into the public domain, which means that a bunch of any company could just release it without having to pay royalties to Toho. So this ends up being like one of the most like widely released on home video Godzilla movies because of this, specifically the 79-minute version, which probably, cycling back to like what I was mentioning before, that probably doesn't feature that error that was mentioned earlier, which so a lot of people aren't necessarily familiar with that.
I mean, it's like the Night of the Living Dead situation where the Image 10 had put the copyright on their title screen was Night of Anubis. And then when the distributor said, no, we got to give it another title, give it the title Night of the Living Dead, they replaced that screen, no copyright on the print. So that is how Night of the Living Dead was immediately believed to be in public domain.
This
It's
is so
like,
wild because it feels like that's something that is easily exploitable.
well, that shit won't happen anymore, like, obviously, but I think
Right.
it doesn't happen anymore because of stuff like this happening.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like companies start learning their lessons to have that stuff on lock and like copyright every little thing that they can and like have lawyers checking everything behind them, you know?
Yeah.
Like this, this was like, from the 70s to the 80s to the 90s is like when this is all happening, right? Like by 1994, Video Treasures said it was like one of their best-selling titles, like was this movie.
Wow.
Also, because it was in the public domain by this point, that is how this movie ends up on Mystery Science Theater 3000 in 1991, which then in the 90s, it has a whole resurgence and it creates a completely new audience because obviously MST3K has its own very like dedicated audience. So there's a lot of people who this is their first Godzilla movie specifically because they were watching it through that show. I do think like the downside to all of that is that like there's also a lot of people who are like, yeah, I love this movie because it was the first time I watched it because I watched it through MS33K. But there's also a lot of people who the biggest sort of introduction to Godzilla for a lot of people was like people making fun of it, essentially, like lovingly, but like a lot of material on that show is meant to be like movies that are, bad or like, junky movies. And so to kind of group a Godzilla movie in it means that there's a lot of people, I think a lot of people blame the reputation of Godzilla for being like silly fare that's like not to be taken seriously on Megalon being on Mystery Science Theater 3000 in the 90s.
Leave Megalon alone. It's not his fault.
I mean, but the thing is, I mean, it doesn't just apply to like other people's perceptions. I mean, there were people like David Kalat or Steve Reifel who basically, I mean, I got this quote from Steve Reifel from his book on Japan's favorite Mon star, the unauthorized biography of the Big G, where he says that Godzilla versus Megalon is, quote, universally regarded as the worst of all Godzilla movies, end quote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
That is the reputation. That is
wow.
It was actually frustrating. I have a lot of respect for like David Kalat. Like he does great commentary. He's a great historian. I was so frustrating like reading his book when doing the research for it, like his critical coverage of this, because his whole passage was just tearing this fucking movie to shreds about how much he hated it and how representative of the worst of Godzilla it was. And I was like, I understand where you're coming from, my guy, but like, I kind of think it's coming from a personal frustration with the perception of this movie and how it then reflected on Godzilla as a franchise. You know what I mean? Like kind of, so like hatred for this movie manifests of being like, well, you're the reason that people like laughed at my like hyperfixation and obsession for a long time. Like the thing that I love, people make fun of it because of this movie,
Well, and I do think that starts to get particularly complicated when you have a movie like this one that had a much smaller budget, that was being forced to be made on far fewer resources, that is marketed in this country specifically for like a kid's audience, that like just isn't made the same way as the movies that are well regarded in the franchise. So like there is like, if you were to be totally objective about it, you could make an argument that this is one of the worst or like not great ones for like all these various reasons. Sure. So then for it to then have this other reputation of like ridicule, it would be so hard to separate those things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's fascinating because I mean we've dealt with this constantly with like every other movie. It's just like this is the movie that every Godzilla fan actually hates, and they're usually like pretty good. Like it's just very odd. But I do think this with the Mystery Science Theater thing and its like strange popularity in the U.S. like makes it a really unique part of Godzilla's history with that kind of stuff.
I actually have the volume, like it's volume 10, I think, of the Mystery Science Theater collection with Godzilla versus Megalon. The one that was pulled from shelves within, I think, maybe it wasn't long. It was like maybe on the shelves for like a month before Toho said, okay, no, we're going to put a stop to this right now. You need to recall all these. And
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
re-released Volume 10 with the giant Gila monster instead, and then all the people.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was just one of these things where, and this is the reason why the Mystery Science Theater episode Godzilla versus the Sea Monster, no go. You're not going to see that on video
Yeah.
ever. Also
Huh.
because that was they released like the Film Ventures version of that, which was definitely not legal. It was just,
Yeah.
but that whole
Yeah.
situation with the fact that it existed on home video and even for the brief period of time it did, I think is a miraculous thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And you just rewatched that. How does the Mystery Science Theater episode play
Well,
now?
that's the thing about it is I think that there are two types of movies that Mr. Science Theater did. There were the ones that were very self-serious, kind of science fiction horror films that didn't quite, you know, they didn't quite live up to their expectations. So like, okay, well, I'm going to make a serious message about people traveling to space and having problems, but unfortunately the acting isn't good and we don't have,
Hmm.
a lot of, like the sets are weird and all these things. So our high aspirations aren't met. So the gap between them, there's a lot of room to make fun of it.
Hmm.
Right.
And then you have movies like Godzilla versus Megalon, where they know that this is a silly movie. They know that like a lot of the Gamera movies, especially the later
Right.
ones, there's this sort of they it's a fun thing that they can play with. So they're not necessarily going to rip it apart as far as the plot is concerned. They're not going to say, "Oh, they were reaching too high and they flew too close to the sun." No, they said, "Okay, this is a goofy movie, and we can make fun of these things. We can make fun of you know Gamera doing gymnastics or Godzilla doing the drop kick when he slides on his
Hmm.
tail, and it's just
Uh-huh.
it
Yeah.
becomes this visual thing that not only becomes associated with those movies, but it also becomes associated with Mystery Science Theater. This is the sort of movie you can expect to see on Mystery Science Theater, you know?
It's interesting because I don't have familiarity with Mystery Science Theater. Like I know what it is. I've never actually watched any of it, so I can't speak to
Oh wow.
like an experience with it. But it sounds sort of like the kind of frustration a lot of smaller fandoms feel when they're focusing too much on like what people outside of their sphere think about their thing.
Hmm.
When it's like just focus on what you think about your thing. Who cares what other people think about your thing? And this kind of feels like maybe it's in that space where like if you just allow yourself to understand where this movie sits in in its history of the franchise, if you just allow yourself to like understand what this movie is versus 54 versus more modern movies,
Hmm.
like I don't know that there's a reason to to really feel like self-conscious about liking this movie or this movie being a part of your fandom without allowing other people to be like that movie sucks, you know what I mean?
I agree with you to an extent because I do get that. I think that is true now. But I think that probably the frustration I think a lot of people had for a long time is that it would kind of affect how accessible and available these movies are.
Sure, that makes
Because
sense.
if it's just if it's a thing that is just like fodder to be laughed at, that's not taken seriously, then it's a lot harder to convince any studio or Toho or whoever to like be like, let's get the rights and get these things released to us. Like it ends up being harder to watch all of them, you know. So you get to a point where like in the 90s you have like Heisei movies that just like literally aren't being imported over here or exported over to the US at all, you know, that or take a long
Yeah.
time or something like that. Like I think that's where a lot of the frustration for the perception comes from.
That makes a lot of sense, and I'm glad to I'm glad you explained that to me because obviously I'm coming into the context of watching all these Godzilla movies starting in
Yeah.
like 2024 when like if I want to watch one I'm gonna find
Right.
it and it's not gonna be that hard, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think to your point though, nobody needs to be mad about it now because it's sort of like who cares when people think about Godzilla movies at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's
But
very
that makes
popular.
sense. Yeah, that's a good thing to remember though.
Yeah. 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 But that all the we don't always dive deep into like the Western release stuff, but it just seems really, really interesting for this movie and like important to its sort of history.
Has Mystery Science Theater done anything similar to it's they've done Gamera movies, right? It sounds like
They
have they
have.
done other like entries in like large franchises that seem to have an effect in the same way, or are these kind of exceptions to what they typically do?
Well, the thing about the Gamera movies is they did pretty much all but I think two of the original Gamera movies during the original run of the series back in the 90s, and they
Hmm.
picked up one of them later. They did Gamera versus Zigra, I think, later on. So they had like six of the seven of the original run of Gamera
Oh
movies
wow.
that had been done on there. They didn't touch any of the Heisei films. They didn't do so like the 90s Gamera movies. They haven't done those, and
Mm,
would. I don't think they would think it was right to do them because those
sure.
are ones that were generally well regarded. Um,
Right.
as for other franchises, they really didn't have many to choose from. Like they would pick and choose. Like they did a couple of TV movies back in like the KTMA days, which were based on a couple of episodes of I want to see Space 1999.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
So you have these isolated things, and they didn't have any other series to pull from, I think. And I
okay.
also think
Yeah.
after Megalon and Sea Monster, Toho was basically okay. Well, you're not getting any more of them.
Sure.
Right.
You've had your fun, and now you
Yeah.
can go home.
Yeah.
Um,
You
Okay.
know, and they
Interesting.
were making that show for like $5. Like
Yeah.
that, it was not like they could license
Right.
the best of the best, especially in the '90s. It's like
Yeah.
they're getting the things they can get the rights to very easily, either public domain or very cheaply.
Gotcha.
It's like I
Interesting.
mentioned in Film Ventures, there are a lot of movies that they got through Film Ventures where, because they were so weirdly repackaged, it was like there was this
Hmm.
different version of a movie. Like they did a Don Dohler movie, and it had the opening credits had bits from another movie shown over it. So they basically they got boxes of tapes and they watched them and said these are the ones that you can get, and then they
Mm,
would have to choose from amongst those which ones they were actually going to do on the show. So they weren't really going out and saying, "Oh, I'd like to do that. I'd like to do that." It's like they were just getting these distributors saying, "Here, grab, here's the grab bag. See what you pull out, and
gotcha.
if you want to do it, great, go with it."
And this just happens to be the Godzilla movie that accidentally ended up in that circumstance.
Basically,
Okay.
yeah,
Pretty
yeah.
much.
Got it.
Because of that,
Thank you for my
yeah.
initial crash course in Mystery Science Theater, massive cultural blind spot for myself.
I mean, and here's the thing about this one. I think this is one of those movies where like they make fun of the dubbing. And that's the other thing. Whenever they have
Yeah.
Japanese movies, of course they're not going to show subtitle versions. They're going to show the dubs,
Right.
and they
Yeah.
very frequently like the kid in this movie. They call him Roxy in the English dub for some odd
Roxy.
reason,
Hmm.
and
Odd.
and the whoever they had doing this kid's voice, it is very grating. So
Hmm.
Mm.
the fact that they pile on every time he pipes up, they're like, "Shut up," So
Yeah.
sometimes it comes down to things that the makers of the movie can't control. They can't control how it was dubbed.
Yeah.
So, like this, so that whatever version they put out for this English export version, it's like, okay, this is what we have to work with. And we don't know how the actors sounded. We don't know how the dialogue sounded in its original Japanese. So this is what we have.
Yeah. And I
Gotcha.
even
Huh.
think with this one, I might be wrong about this. I'll probably get an email from Robert correcting me on this. If I am, but I think because of the weird public domain thing, I think that like that also meant that any studio could like make their own dub of it too. So like I think that there's probably multiple dubs that exist of it, of probably varying quality. So who knows like what like dubs that are not at all sanctioned by Toho, you
But
know?
yeah, I
Right.
can confirm that the English dub version that is on the Criterion channel is the same version that Mystery Science Theater did. So basically, yeah,
Interesting.
so basically they had whatever the English language version that Toho had, and they just cut it down to fit in the show.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, it's just yeah, it's really fascinating, and it is just the different ways people have experienced like different versions, slightly different versions of this movie because of that is so interesting. The only other last thing I want to bring up production wise is that this will be foreshadowing for future things Doug and I are going to do on Patreon, but also part of this sort of crossover superhero TV strategy they were doing with this movie is that they around the same time that they work on this movie, they also start working on a TV project which eventually becomes known as Zone Fighter. That involves Godzilla and Godzilla characters, and it's similar. A character that looks strikingly similar to Jet Jaguar, but is not Jet Jaguar.
But isn't Jet Jaguar?
Yeah, not Jet Jaguar. But put a pin in that. We will do a Patreon episode on that within the next few months.
Cool.
But that the TV Toku hero strategy is a big thing they were pushing alongside this movie.
Gotcha.
So let's talk about the many creatures and many kaiju in this movie. Before we get to like the man of the hour, I do want to touch on Godzilla because he obviously has a new design and a new actor in this movie. Doug, you're making a face.
They made him like so cartoony cute, like, and this is not a bad thing. I just like was not expecting it. He's
your cuddly Godzilla. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
A cutie pie, if there ever was a cutie pie.
Yeah, like big cartoony, sort of like way more anime eyes than we've seen to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And almost like kind of I don't know, like his mouth is like curved in sort of like a duck or a maw, like cute maw type of way.
Sure.
Where it typically doesn't have that sort of like curve to it. So it always kind of has a little like
smiley
grin on. Yeah.
Yeah. A little happy
and
face.
feels maybe like smaller than usual, or is that the other monsters and suits making it look a little smaller than usual?
I think it's the normal size, but
Okay.
it probably is just the size of the monsters and the way that he's framed. Although he is standing more upright in this suit, I think, than like some of the previous ones are. I mean, they've all been pretty upright.
It's a very
sure,
man-shaped Godzilla
yeah.
for sure.
And the other
Yeah.
thing is definitely because you don't have him contrasted with this, like buildings and cities.
Yes.
That's a good point.
You don't really get
That
that
is a very
scale
good
in
point.
terms of, well, this Godzilla's huge because look, he's the same size as this, 10-story
Right.
building. No, he's just out in a field somewhere,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also
yeah.
has like a pretty large head. Like if you want to
He
make
does.
something cuter, you make their head bigger. So
is-
that does apply here.
Yeah. Apparently, according to Terushi Nakano, the suit was made in like a week. So it was like the fastest Godzilla
What?
suit they'd ever made. They didn't even have time really to make the eyes work like they wanted it to at the time. I think they still work fine, but like they did not have time for this.
This
Yeah.
is bad news for me because I feel like based on, I don't remember exactly, but based on whatever number I said for how many suits are left, this would have to be the last one. And that does not make me feel like this could possibly be the last one in the Showa era if they made it in a week. But we'll see.
You'll
We'll
have
see.
to find out. You'll have to find out. This also is a new Godzilla actor. It's not Nakajima for the first time in the Showa era, or I guess in Godzilla history. It's Shinji Takagi, who I don't really know much of anything about it. It's the only time he plays Godzilla.
Oh.
He has like one credit in a TV show before this. There's very little known about him. The most I could find is that there's a quote from Nakano, I think in the 70 Years book, that says he coached him to be, quote, someone who felt pride in acting inside a costume. That's it. I
Okay.
think he did a great job. I like him. I like Godzilla's movements in this, and his little martial arts poses and his peace sign and his little, like, he's a really excitable, like, lovable mascot hero.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised. And he didn't come from like a costume show, right? It's not like he's coming from
Nope.
like Ultraman.
I don't know who he is, and then he just
Interesting.
disappeared. So
Wow.
I guess
Right
it
after
wasn't for
this?
him.
He didn't do anything after?
He didn't
Whoa.
do anything. Not that I could find. I mean,
Wow.
records
I mean,
for this
sure,
stuff
yeah.
are always really spotty, but like, I've never found him. And everywhere that I look is sort of like, no, we don't know about this guy. I'm like, all right, great. Hope
That's
he had a good life.
fascinating. Right? And he's like, to our knowledge, is not alive anymore, right? It sounds like, based on how you just said that.
I don't know that anyone knows.
Oh my god, really? This
I don't
man
know.
needs to just appear at a convention one day. It's like that kind of story where like this man did this movie and somehow just like disappeared and then was like, oh wait, are people super into Godzilla or something? People still like that
Oh my
stuff?
God.
That would be so
Yeah.
funny.
I do know that
I don't know.
Criterion got the actor who played Jet Jaguar, and they interviewed him on,
Ooh.
when they released the big Showa box set of
Mhm.
Godzilla movies, and that's an extra. And that's also an extra on the Criterion channel. That's how I saw it.
Nice.
So
Nice.
so they got to talk to him. So there's at least one person from that movie who was willing to talk about his time in a rubber suit for it.
It's all I would
So
talk about for the
funny.
rest of my life. Are you kidding me?
Right? Right? Yeah, okay, let's just talk about Jet Jaguar. We don't have to, let's not keep waiting. There's 2 credited actors for him. I'm not exactly sure how they split it up, and I think there's one who's like the dominant actor as well. I'm not really sure. So, Sugatoshi Komada, I think he's the one who was interviewed in that Criterion interview, and he's the one that people know stuff about. The other credited actor is Masachika Mori. I don't know shit about that guy. It is another one I cannot find anything about. So I'm guessing there's probably was a difference. It was probably because they were filming it so fast. They probably filmed some Jet Jaguar scenes where he's fighting, with the kaiju, and then the other guy probably filmed some scenes when he's human size with the humans, so they could film him at the same time. Is my guess. I think Komada was the primary one who's doing actually the fight sequences. He was actually part of an acting troupe that was with fellow actors Kenpachiro Satsuma, who goes on to be Godzilla, and he plays Gigan in this, as well as Hideto Dade, who plays Megalon in this. So basically, we've got an entire acting troupe playing the monsters.
I like that.
Yeah, and this was Komada's first foray into suit acting. He says, I think it's on the Criterion set. Yeah, is in that interview where he says the most wonderful thing that ever happened to me, which is really nice. Yeah, but he would continue to suit acting in shows like Tiger 7 and Rock Bat and stuff like that.
Gotcha. He didn't have to do Anguirus first.
No.
He did not have to walk. He didn't have to crawl before he could walk. Right.
Right. Yeah, he got to just suit act as a guy. Nice. We talked about the design already, but a little bit more about it that I thought was really interesting is that Nakano said, like, at first he was a little bit reluctant to make him too Ultraman-like because there already were a bunch of Ultraman imitators. But apparently what made him decide to go for it was that he was inspired on making him, like, deliberately, quote, unattractive. I don't agree. I think he's a pretty attractive looking robot, but apparently that was his thought.
I get what he's saying, because I did not have a hard time believing when I thought this was Megalon that this guy could have been presented as a bad guy. Like, I do think there is a sharpness to his look.
He's got that toothy grin.
And he's got a toothy grin. Yeah, like, I think there's a way you could sell this guy as more of a trickster or a sinister character if you wanted to.
That's fair.
Part of that might be informed by the fact that the Green Goblin in Spider-Man Raimi movie kind of looks like this guy, which Hamish pointed out to me without me realizing he was talking about Jet Jaguar.
Wow, he really does, doesn't he? That's so weird.
So that might just be some backwards exposure for me, but I could see what he means. Yeah,
and I guess, like, I always knew that he was a hero, so I've always just, like, associated him with being a friend.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I think he looks cool.
I love his introduction when they go into the lab for the first time and he doesn't have his head yet.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
I was surprised.
Yeah,
he's not done yet. They still have to finish him. And I love that his friend Hiroshi basically jokes, "Hey, wouldn't it be great if the earthquake destroyed your robot?" And it's like, yeah, no.
Why would you say that, bro?
Yeah, come on, man. Oh my god. That head included material from actual car taillights that they got from a nearby car dealership. So, like, the eyes are just like headlights, basically. Like literal headlights.
I guess that explains the really kind of odd shape of them. Like, it's like, again, these are all cool shapes, but they're very unexpected shapes.
Yeah, isn't that wild? This also kind of blew my mind. So, like, okay, the suit made out of, like, wetsuit material, and they put some foam rubber on it. That's not a surprise. But apparently, because of the material they were using, it was apparently, like, super duper flammable. So they had to be really careful filming this around fire, which I was doing research before I rewatched the movie, and I'm like, oh yeah, sure. And you watch the movie, there's a lot of fucking fire in this movie right around Jet Jaguar. So
yeah, there's a moment where you can literally see the Godzilla suit on fire. Like, they're not keeping them away from it either.
Yeah, it's really incredible.
Oh my gosh, these poor men.
I mean, and that's I think that suit actors don't get a lot of credit for the punishment they go through. I mean, you look at any scene where, like, they're being hit by missiles or being shot at by the military. It's like they're actually getting hit by stuff. There's squibs going off. There's flames. There are all these things that's like, I mean, I don't know how long
Mm-hmm.
a take would be, but you would think after like, maybe a minute of that, you'd be like, okay, I'm done. Get me out of this. I'm
Right.
starting to heat up now.
Yeah.
Yeah, half the time they
Exactly.
can't see shit either. Like, yeah, and this one too. Like they said, they like the way the Jet Jaguar head works, that it's like two halves that they like bolted together. So like, there's no way for him to take it off on his own.
Oh God, I hate that. Every time I
I
learn
know.
one of the ways that they put one of these people into these suits, it's like terrifying. Like I don't think I'm claustrophobic, and then you tell me how these people end up in these suits, and I'm like, maybe I am. That would be awful. Not to be able to take it off.
Yeah,
Bolt it on. That's crazy. But badass as hell.
Oh yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Obviously they had some miniature props from him as well. That's par for the course for this, for when he's flying. Are there any other thoughts about Jet Jaguar, about his design and his sort of characterization, that you want to bring up right now?
It's got a really tall fin-like head, or like I don't know. There's something aerodynamic about it that I don't really have an explanation for. So
Yeah,
I just thought it was interesting. It's like, you got a tall head, bud.
it's an interesting shape.
I love
Yeah.
the fact that whenever he does take off, he sort of has these antennae that come out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they also
the antennae are interesting.
yeah, and he also, because he's nonverbal, his method of communicating, with gestures or with arm movements or whatever, and it's just like I also love that when he goes to get Godzilla, he basically said, just does some arm movements, and Godzilla's like, "Yep, okay, cool," you know. So
Yeah.
he's a very expressive character, even though
Yeah.
he can't speak, even though he, you don't really know if there's anything going on upstairs, but he sort of has
Yeah.
this ability to be very lovable, because I think he's just doing the best he can with what he's been given by his human creator Goro, who clearly, and I love the fact that we never find out exactly what Goro's plan for Jet Jaguar was, other than it would be cool to make a
That's true.
robot. I think that's
Yeah.
that's all his entire thing was about, was okay, I can make a robot, cool, and then what? I don't know.
He's our friend now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two thoughts on that. One, I think you answered my question about his head by pointing out the way he flies. His name's literally Jet Jaguar,
Hmm.
and he flies like a missile. So that's probably the explanation for why his head looks like that.
Yeah.
But two, yeah, I mean, like the fact that this guy just builds this dude and we never get any sort of explanation is really funny. But also, like, his best friend is a race car driver, and he seems to be like an inventor. So maybe he's just like this guy's engineer and like
Yeah.
got bored.
Also, best friend. These guys aren't like partners. Are you kidding me?
And they were
we-
roommates.
We'll get to that. Jet Jaguar's two dads.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, no, I think I actually think the sort of nonverbal aspect of Jet Jaguar is really important, because I do think that's a big advantage to him not just being a henshin hero and just being one of our two main guys transforming, is that it lets him feel a lot more akin to the kaiju that we're used to in Godzilla movies,
Yeah.
because they're also nonverbal, like, or if they talk, it's like in a very unique way, or with like word bubbles or subtitles or something. He kind of still, even though he's just like a robot that can grow for some reason,
He reprograms
He's-
himself to grow. Remember,
of course, like you do, just because of his determination, his fierce determination. Like, it still makes him feel akin to the kaiju, and I do think, it kind of makes him like more lovable, because he just sort of feels like a character you can kind of graft any personality you want him to be onto him, which I think helps a lot. Yeah, I like him. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's cool.
he's got his own theme song. It's wild.
Yes. No, we can talk. Let's talk about that for a second. I love his theme song, and it's performed by Masato Shimon, who was a very popular singer in general at the time. He also performed the themes for a whole bunch of Toku TV that you've definitely seen, because among other things, he did the original Kamen Rider theme song.
Okay.
The original Kamen Rider theme song, and a bunch of sequels too, and a bunch of other shows. But like, that's the one that everybody knows.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that rules.
Yeah. So he sings a song about kicking, and he sings a song about punching.
Yeah.
The titular Megalon, who I feel like is like, I like Megalon, but does kind of get a little bit like buried in the Jet Jaguar of it all, you know?
Yeah.
He's portrayed by Hideto Date, who I referenced earlier as part of that same theater troupe. He's just another one who I think had previously been a suit actor in Thunder Mask. I don't think he does a whole lot of stuff after this, but he's a theater actor, so he probably stays in theater. The inspiration for Megalon actually was originally from All Monsters Attack, when Gabara, they were originally conceiving him as being like a mole cricket kaiju. They abandoned that idea, obviously, for that movie, but they sort of retained the idea of an insectoid. Kind of continued that for Megalon. I think they were thinking of like originally of like dragonflies and ladybugs, but they just settled on a Japanese rhinoceros beetle just because they were super popular at the time. So that's how they land on that. But his final design is still a combination of rhinoceros beetles for his head. His body, though, is a lot more modeled after like cicadas. And apparently his movements, they were thinking of grasshoppers for the way that he moved and jumped around.
Oh, I love when he jumps around, because he does this thing where when he flies, he spreads his wings and he can fly. So he proves that he can do that. But then there comes a point where he just says, "I'm just gonna hop," because I'm enjoying hopping around.
Yeah. Yeah, I just feel like it.
Yeah.
And then he gets hopping mad.
He really does. He really does. He kicks ass in this movie and then gets his ass kicked. Like, there's a lot of kicking of each other's asses in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
His suit, this is wild to me. Okay, so like the materials of the suit are not abnormal, like resin, acrylic eyes, like the fiber reinforced plastic and stuff like that. The back shell is made from like a rigid urethane, which is pretty heavy. All of that meant, especially the back, means that this was the heaviest suit created by Toho up to that point.
Whoa.
Not just like for Godzilla movies, but Toho in general. It was the heaviest suit.
Oh, hell yeah, Megalon.
I don't know the exact weight for it, but like it's heavier than any of the other ones.
Even heavier than the original Godzilla, which was made out of tire rubber.
According to these things, that it was. So I don't know how that's possible, but I think the shell just made it really fucking heavy.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that.
And apparently it was like incredibly hard to do the leaps through the air. And they were like, they considered cutting a lot of that stuff. They probably did end up cutting some sequences because they were on a time constraint. They really had to like just have a bunch of crew members just hoisting him up and down as much as possible. Yeah. Apparently it was really hard for Date to hear out of as well. So they had to like blow a whistle really loud to notify him when he could do the jumping motion. So it's like, seems like a real nightmare to have been in.
Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, what a blessing to eventually be able to just like have an earpiece in there.
What do you think of this guy?
This design fucks. I think Megalon is the coolest. This is the suit I want to wear. I want to wear this suit and walk around and just be this cool ass bug guy so bad.
Well,
like,
it sounds like it would be a real workout for you if you did that. But
well, I'd be ripped, and it would be worth it. I think this design is so cool. It's so funny to me that like I had no idea this is what Megalon was, despite the title of the movie, and that like Megalon's like kind of not really the focus of the movie in a big way. It's like it's like so funny to me that they come up with what I think is like a sick ass design. And it's like kind of downplayed. Like, I mean, part of it is I do just love like any sort of creature design that's based on like a rhinoceros beetle or like a Hercules beetle, or any of those types of like really gigantic beetles that sort of inspire like Pokemon, like I love that stuff. This also is just a straight up Digimon. Like if we're being so real, I don't know. Yeah. I think this thing rules. I don't know what people think about it, but I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I love that he has like a movable mouth, like the way that his mouth opens and moves.
Yeah,
it's really gnarly, and I think it's his sort of spike drill hands that can combine, like, are really clever. That's such a clever idea.
Okay, I'm so curious about this because this is like a design thing that shows up in like plenty of stuff, and I'm so curious to know where it comes from because it's like a drill is like a machinery thing. And I know that like simple drills have existed for a long time, but like this idea of, because there are Pokemon and other creatures and other designs and like superhero type characters that have this same sort of thing where it's like two halves or multiple pieces of a drill that they then put together to like form the drill. I think it's always cool. I think it looks really cool on this guy. I think his drills being like these weird zigzag things is like a fun twist on it. But I'm so curious as to where this began.
Well, I can tell you from having watched a lot of I've seen the original, seen Ultraman, Ultra Q, the original Ultraman, and Return of Ultraman, and so
Yeah.
many of the monsters on these shows were like creatures that lived in the earth and then were disturbed by construction projects. So they're always using these sorts of devices, either it's attached to their head or their hands, that they use to dig through the ground and emerge and fuck shit up basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I
That
mean, it
makes sense.
rules. I love it.
Yeah. Really cool.
It's a design choice that never ever gets old for me.
No, it's always really cool. And the fact that his like wings can open, like the shell opens and he has wings. Like I know, like obviously he's a bug, but like that they built that into his design, that he can do that and has sort of a flying version of him. It's a really neat. It's just a neat detail, I think, that they include. Like they really embrace that he's a giant bug.
Yeah, and has like really like bright, like that the pattern on his, like the hard parts of his wings, like the shell of his wings, is really cool too. It's like so much brighter than anything else on his body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Even in the early concept design, he always had bright color schemes. They said, I think they were originally going for like a red and orange one.
Whoa! I just found, I think, that exact one.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Yeah, no, I agree. He's a really, really cool monster for this.
And as for his performance, I love, especially when we get to the end fight, like the motion he does where he like mashes, he like, does the chop, putting his arms
Yeah!
together. It was just sort of like, hey, here I am, and
Yeah.
I'm ready to do this. And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
again, I think and knowing that, the actor inside him was in this troupe with these other actors who are in these other monster suits, you sort of get that feeling that this was not, virgin territory for them. They were used to mixing it up on, whatever they did, and putting that personality in there. I think it does help this suit come to life. It helped mix this character who, I mean, you sort of get this feeling that the Utopians don't really have a lot of confidence in his ability to get the job done.
Aw.
Yeah.
which is why
Yeah.
which is why we have the whole spy plot and the getting Jet Jaguar and how Jet Jaguar is the one who's supposed to lead him to Tokyo. It's just like, okay, this is a very convoluted way of going about this. I'm sure you could have workshopped this a little more.
Oh, but I like the idea that maybe Megalon is also a little bit dumb.
Yeah.
Makes me like him even more.
Yeah, I like what you said, Craig, about like the theater troupe thing, because you do feel that in this. Like, there's so much camaraderie between these monsters, and like I think that helps them really go hard on the sort of tag team wrestling aspect of this. Like Godzilla versus Gigan technically kind of did that, but they are really embracing like 2-on-2 battle with this, and Megalon and Gigan, like, they're such they feel like Bebop and Rocksteady to me. Like they're these silly bros who are just like reveling and being able to like fuck shit up and having a blast doing it, and they're kind of silly and kind of dumb, but also like genuinely formidable at the same time. Like I love that vibe so much.
Yeah. It feels like this match makes so much more sense to me than like Ghidorah and Gigan. That doesn't feel like a bromance. You know what I mean? These two feel like bros.
Speaking of, Gigan is also in this movie. Why does he show up? I don't know, because he can.
Because they have the suit.
Well, that's the fucking thing. They had to rebuild the suit because it was so
What?
damaged in the last movie.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
it's
I
still
guess-
Kenpachiro
huh.
Satsuma playing him, but they beat the shit out of that suit in the last movie. So they built a new one for it. I'm sure it still like they already had the designs and pieces of it.
Sure.
So it still wasn't as
Still.
hard as building a new one from scratch, but it was technically a new one. If you compare the two, they do look very like almost exactly the same, but it is like a little bit thinner. It's not as bulky. Like the horn is less pointed. The buzzsaw does not move.
Oh no, yeah. There's a moment in this movie where like Godzilla has him pinned down and is laying on top of him. I'm like, oh, this could go really badly for you. But the saw doesn't move, so you're good.
No worries.
Whoops, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, he's literally obviously here because he was popular from the last one, and they can do a tag team battle with it, you know? But it is very funny, which is like, we're getting a message from the Nebula. They're just sending Gigan. Like, you guys just talk to space aliens? Okay, sure.
Sure. Space and deep sea are basically the same thing. It's fine.
Just give him a phone call to say, hey, can Gigan come out and play?
It's so funny. It's so out of nowhere. I'm showing up, and I'm like, am I mad about it? Absolutely not. The fight scenes are fucking fun. Yeah. We could talk about the actual fight scenes and stuff like that later, but we got to talk about some human characters. First off, this movie, first and I think only Godzilla film in the history of Godzilla films to have 0 named female characters or women in a speaking role.
Wow.
There's a few women sprinkled around in the background. They're dancing in Seatopia, but not a single woman utters a word, and not a single one of them is named.
Yeah.
So that's a little rough.
Yeah.
We do get queer representation though in a gay couple.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah.
And
absolutely.
when you ask me why I gravitated to this one, I think a lot of that is that sort of unspoken, Goro and Hiroshi kind of thing going on that,
Yep.
we don't know about their history going for, before this. We don't know how long they've been hanging out, but, we sort of get this feeling that this picnic outing that they're on where, I'm blanking on the little kid's name.
Roku.
When he's out on the lake on that really insanely complicated contraption.
Yeah.
And they're just out there, just sort of chilling. They've got their various beverages, and they're just sort of hanging out, and it's just sort of like, maybe later on after the little kid goes to sleep,
Right. Honestly. Yeah. Like the vibe, it's like, that's a date that they're on. Like, absolutely. They have good chemistry too. I like them. Goro Ibuki is the inventor character. He's played by Katsuhiko Sasaki. This is his first Godzilla film, but we'll see him again in the Showa era. We've actually already seen him on this podcast because he does appear in the Heisei era. He was Professor Mazaki in Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, like one of the main professors in that movie.
Oh.
So, yeah. He's done plenty of film, TV, and anime voiceover work. He's continued to work up through at least 2019. He still has credits. I think he's still alive and everything, but he's like in his 80s, so he might have retired by this point. But he also is one of those guys who's done a shit ton of Japanese dubbing of Western films.
Yes.
These are fun. He's done a bunch of Robert De Niro roles. He's done a bunch of Alec Baldwin roles. But some notable ones, he was Ra's al Ghul in the Dark Knight films.
All right.
He's Theoden in Lord of the Rings. He's Richard Schiff's character in all of the West Wing. And for the Godzilla connection, he's the main military admiral guy that I'm forgetting the name of in the MonsterVerse Godzilla and Godzilla King of the Monsters films, but a ton of others. He's done so many major films he's done dubbing for, which is always fun to run into one of those guys.
I can't believe I didn't recognize this guy. I'm looking at him in Heisei era form, and it's so obviously him.
Yeah, but like, what would you be thinking about that?
Yeah,
and that's like one downside of watching it backwards sometimes, the way that we do it. Yeah.
He is a cool as hell looking old man, I must point out. Like, I don't know when this picture of him in like full white facial hair, like slicked back gray hair and leather jacket or whatever is, but he looks cool as hell.
Oh, wow. He does look cool. Yeah. I saw Googled it. Yeah. He's a cool looking guy. His life partner is Hiroshi, the race car driver. He's played by Yutaka Hayashi. He's also a cool guy. He was the drummer for a Japanese pop quintet known as the Village Singers in the late 1960s.
Whoa.
Really fucking cool. And I think like did a reunion with them in the 80s too. He showed up in an episode of Android Kakaider the year before this, so he's no stranger to Tokyo. He's played a lot of like kind of reporter and comedian characters for like comedy and variety shows on Japanese TV. That's kind of like where he kind of made his market. And he's been in a lot of Japanese films up into the 80s. So he had quite a career. He's got such a striking face. Like he's such a cool looking guy.
He is.
Yeah. Yeah.
The hair, they both have this though. It's not, I'm not picking on him specifically, but that like super thick, long sort of like faux sideburn thing they both have going on. Like, oh man, there's so much hair that you got hanging at the side of your face.
The sideburns in this movie are unreal. Like, yeah. And just to mention him, Roku the kid is played by Hiroyuki Kawase, who was Ken in Godzilla vs. Ghidorah. So we have seen him before.
Whoa.
And I also want to call out one of the things we talk about in that movie is that like he kind of disappeared. Robert emailed and corrected us on that. He had disappeared for quite a while, but it actually was a handful of years ago. Like a researcher did eventually like track him down, contacted him, and got him to attend G-Fest. So he has been found and is living his life.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, what are the general feelings on our heroic characters, our heroic triptych of this movie, the little gay family?
I think that I love that Roku is almost sort of like they all have their thing going on where, you know, Hibarashi is the race car driver, he says he's an amateur, but he's still, you know, he's got that, he actually has a decal on his car. I don't know if you notice. So he has, you know, he has his own racing decal thing. Roku
cool.
Invents that little tiny, I don't know what you would call it, just that little two-wheeled bike that he drives around.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So obviously his older brothers, you know, being an inventor is rubbed off on him. And I also love that they have this, you know, the background of like when you drive up to their house, like this pop art background is, you know, like it looks like something out of Yellow Submarine. It's just sort of like, you know,
so cool.
It was like whoever did the production design for this house, either they found this house and found the painting
it's
like
a real
that.
House.
Right, yeah. But
it's like they're like, I don't know like what the most recent picture I saw was, but like there's a much more recent picture with like more houses now like on either side of it. Like it existed like till at least pretty recently based on the car that was out front.
But did the mural exist or did they add it?
I don't know.
You know.
Yeah.
Because
how they set it up is like interior and exterior is like so cool.
Yeah. It is really, no, I agree with you. It's really cool. It's really striking and memorable, which I think is important. Like if you're going to do a movie that has like barely any people in it and like barely any locations or sets, then the ones that you use, you want it to be really striking. And I do think they find a really fucking cool looking house. And even the inside of it, I think is like really well designed for like the interior set too. Like for the lab, like they make a meal out of this. And then the fact that like the Zootopia agents are like, well, we're taking over your house now. Like they make a meal out of this location. But again, I like it works because that like weird cube shape of it is just really cool.
And the hanging cubes, they're so cool.
With pictures of race cars on them, and they've got and I love the Goro has this big control center, you know, like the whole display with all the buttons and everything, and it's just like, you know, where, you know, are they independently wealthy? How does he make money? How, you know, does he have a job, or does making the Jet Jaguar, is that his job? You know,
right? So many questions. I know we know nothing about them. And it's like, and I think has to be supporting his like race car driver husband, because he says because he's not like a famous race car driver. He's still like trying to break into the industry or whatever, isn't it?
Yes, he says I'm just an amateur, but you know.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, man.
I mean, whatever they're doing, they're successful because Hiroshi has more than one car. Like it's true. He's not driving one car.
Yeah.
One thing about the house, because I ended up looking up this house that they don't focus on in the movie because they don't use this part of the house as the set. There's like a whole, like, so you know how there's like the spot out front that has the mural where like the cars park, and then there's like the big cube house. There's sort of like an underhang area, and you see for a brief moment Roku sort of like go under this like underhang that's kind of like a lawn. there's a hole that goes through that overhang up into what is basically like an outdoor patio thing, and there's bamboo growing from the lawn underneath the building through the hole up into that like rooftop patio. It's so fucking cool.
It's really cool. Yeah.
I'm obsessed with
really
this house.
I mean, I do think it's like, that is one thing that speaks to like a lot of the criticisms for this movie, and a lot of negativity. People are just sort of like, well, it's so cheap. It looks so cheap. It's so clear they didn't have a budget and everything. And I'm like, but they utilize that budget to still like make really cool looking stuff as best as they could. Like the set, like the sets, the couple of sets they do have, like I said, look really fucking cool and like are so well detailed and well designed and things like that, and like feel really full and lived in. Like, and that's, I don't know, man, like that's, they didn't phone this movie in like so clearly.
Right.
Like, they still made it look really cool as best that they could, even with their like, you know, limited film that they were allowed to use and stuff. So
Right.
yeah. I feel the same way about like Seatopia, because all the Seatopia shit is so wild in this movie.
Is it time to talk about Robert Dunham?
I was going to say,
Their
Craig
icon.
Unleashed.
Robert Dunham. Let's talk about him, baby.
Amazing.
You know, this man had to be a sexual awakening for so many people.
Yeah. I love so much that this dude has like a toga on, and either no one asked or he refused to trim, cut, shave any part of his body. Like
I
anything
love
from the
it
neck
so
down, he
much.
was like, do not fucking touch it. And I was like, yes.
So good.
It's incredible.
There's actually
I wanna-
there's actually an interview with him that Steve Rifle put in his book where he talks about making this movie, and you know, like some of the things that he worked on, like he was in the original Mothra and things of that, you know, like little bit
Mhm.
parts that led up to being this sort of major role. Emperor Antonio, I think, is the name of the character.
Antonio, yeah.
And yeah, he describes how he was called up one day and said, "Hey, we'd like you to be in our new movie. Would you know, are you available?" And he said, "Yes, I'm available." "Okay, we'll report to you know, your costume department, and then we'll get you fitted, and then we'll get you on set." And so he doesn't know what kind of role it is. He just shows up and they say,
Amazing.
"Here's your costume," and he says, "Okay." And obviously doesn't balk, obviously doesn't, you know, say, "Well, you
Yeah.
got to cover me up somehow. You got to give me some," you know, he just says, "Okay, this is my costume. This is what I'm wearing. This is what I got."
Hell yeah.
I also love that part of his costume. They called it tiara, or like the headpiece that has like a
Yes.
little, you know, Megalon head on it, which is just like,
so cool. It's so cool. I want to cosplay him so bad. Because, like, also, like,
Please do.
just as hairy as he is, the only difference is I wouldn't shave my beard for it. So I wouldn't be able to, like, display the epic sideburns that he has. But,
Sure.
like, it wouldn't be a hard costume. Really, the main thing is a toga and then, like, that fucking headpiece, you know?
It's just the
And being
accessories
hit-
you have to figure
and-
out.
Yeah. And then otherwise, as long as you got body hair, it's great. And I've got that on lock. So, like, that
Mhm.
should be, you know, we'll see when that happens. But I would like to do that at some point. Also, making it funnier, he's in this like beautiful, like pretty gay costume. This man was a fucking Marine who was stationed in Japan. That's how he ended up in Japan. He was fucking Marine, stationed in Japan, got honorably discharged, just lived there for like 22 years, learned to speak fluent Japanese, opened his own like import-export business. He was a stunt man. He was like a stunt man and stunt driver. And he would just like get tapped for these movies because they would need an American or like, you know, a white man sometimes. So like this fucking like Marine is like dressed up in this beautiful like femme ditty that I fucking love, covered in glitter and a tiara, and he fucking owns it. He's so good.
Yep. It's amazing. And it was such a like wonderful surprise, one, to just see him, but two, I think everything else we've seen him in, he's been like suited up. Like he's been suited to the neck.
Mhm.
So this is like, whoa, buddy. Like,
Yeah.
hello,
on
all of
display.
you.
it's like,
And like you
More-
said, the
yeah.
sideburns are wild in this.
I mean, it's like just,
and his little like
yeah.
mustache.
It's kind of like
So
Joseph
good.
Cotton in Latitude Zero, where it's like, okay, let's take, let's
Yes.
let's see how you look like shirtless. He says, let's do this. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
yes,
Oh,
exactly. I love it. Like I
so
love how
good.
how gay these movies are, like out of nowhere sometimes in such beautiful ways. God, I love it so much. Um, Also, I think this also makes it even better. Like, he's dubbed over for this. They don't use his natural speaking voice, and it's Goro Naya again, who did all the dubbing for Nick Adams in the previous Godzilla movies, like a legendary voice actor. So like that also lets him have this deep voice as well with it, which is great.
When
Yeah.
when they have this, or in the versions of this that are dubbed, is Robert Dunham speaking English and is his voice? I didn't pay close enough attention to tell if he was speaking Japanese and then it was dubbed over in Japanese, or if he was speaking English and dubbed over in Japanese. But I'm wondering if either of you encountered a dub with his voice.
I didn't think to look. Because I'm pretty sure he's speaking Japanese in this, and he can't. Like the reason Nick Adams did it was because he didn't really speak fluent Japanese. That's why they did it that way. But like he can, then they can just dub over his voice. So I'd assume it's someone else dubbing over him when they do the dub, but I don't know for sure. I can tell you the other two Seatopian guys are both sort of interesting too. Well, one is more interesting than the other, I think.
Okay.
So like the kind of lead Seatopian that like kind of gets the most screen time, the one that doesn't have a beard, Kotaro Tomita. He's the type of actor who shows up in like one episode of every Toku show. So like you've seen him in Ultraman, Super Sentai, Metal Heroes up until the 80s. Like he shows up in all of those. That makes a lot of sense. The other guy, I love this. Ulf Otsuki, the bearded Seatopian agent.
Yes.
This is the thing, Doug, that you're always bringing up, where it's sort of like when we see these like white dudes in these movies, are they actually like American or European, or are they people who are just like
they
white
actually
people
Japanese?
who are Japanese?
Who are
So
just white.
Ulf was born to a Russian-Swedish father and a Japanese mother in Tokyo. He was initially given Swedish nationality at birth, but he was forced to stay in Japan with his mom and sister due to the Nazi occupation in Sweden. So then he lost his Swedish nationality when he turns 20 because he never set foot in Sweden.
Yeah.
Just became a Japanese citizen anyway. From there, he ends up appearing because is such a distinct looking man. Like being like half like Russian, Swedish, and Japanese is a wild combination of nationalities. That's why he looks so distinct. Mm-hmm. He ends up showing up in a bunch of Toku shows. He very frequently plays like very big eccentric villains. So he's a recurring villain in Warrior of Love Rainbow Man. He's Professor Hessler in Daitujin 17. He makes a bunch of like one-off villain appearances in a bunch of like Kamen Rider shows, like Kamen Rider Super 1, in Jiraiya and Cyber Cop as well. He shows up in Super Sentai stuff into the 90s, like Turbo Ranger, Die Ranger, and Kaku Ranger. I recognize him because if you have seen the Kaku Ranger Christmas episode, which has the football playing centipede and then the Santa school, all the Santa Clauses, he is the main Santa Claus in that Kaku Ranger episode.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I realize I've seen him. I didn't remember him, but I have also seen him because he was in a few episodes of Kamen Rider Drive, where he would have been a pretty old guy at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Harley Hendrickson was his name. So good.
So cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
wow. Okay. Well, we found one. This mythical, figure that I've been talking about and wondering about. He exists.
So good. Yeah. The Seatopians are so wild. I mean, like, Doug, you couldn't have predicted that there would be another undersea civilization that's not Mu.
Well, no, especially because they talk about Mu. Like they reference other ones that I would have more expected, but I guess if they're going to have a different monster, if it's going to be totally different characters, if it's, you now have other things that have happened in this quote universe. I guess it makes sense to introduce a different one, but no, never would have expected. But I do kind of like that. Like, I was sort of joking, sort of not, that deep space and deep sea are kind of the same thing. I do like that they kind of just keep evening out the number of civilizations that are, these deep oceanic civilizations and these alien civilizations,
Yeah.
It's interesting though, because there is no like infiltration of Seatopia. There's the Seatopian agents, but those are agents who are very like integrated into Japanese society. So they kind of are meant to and are supposed to just sort of look like members of society. So there's not like crossover between the super Seatopian looking Seatopians and our like main heroic trio in what I probably would have expected in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bad thing. It's just interesting, especially when you have characters like going to Mu or Mu characters like coming to the surface, or
Yeah, they never take the fight to Seatopia. It's just not. It's really not necessary.
Yeah.
Well, before we leave the discussion of Robert Dunham, I love the fact that he, in addition to playing the Emperor, he's also the motorcycle guy who, during the chase, he's the guy on the motorcycle
Oh.
he because he had this side hustle as being a stunt person. They said, well, we need somebody to do this motorcycle stunt, and he said, well, I can do that. I'm told, put a helmet on me, they won't know I'm the same guy. He is not the guy who gets the cement dumped on him, though. Because apparently he had a commercial shoot. Like, he had to go straight from shooting the motorcycle stunt to this commercial. And he said, if you dump a load of paint on me, I'm never going to get clean enough in time to do this commercial. So they put somebody else in the suit and helmet and had him yank on the cord and get that whatever that I always call it concrete, but it looks like either plaster or paint or something. And it's just, I think
a milkshake
of all the goofy moments in this film, and there is no shortage of goofy moments, that is the one that comes out of nowhere. Like they have this sort of long chase, like they have the bit where they go down the stairs and it's a little goofy, and then they wind up on the side of a mountain and they're going down into this quarry, and then they're on a construction site and they crash through buildings, and then all of a sudden the motorcycle who joined the chase earlier on wipes out, and when the guy goes to pull himself up, he pulls on a cord, and then that just unleashes just a bunch of I think cement that you're supposed to believe that just covers him.
Yeah.
And instead of getting out of the way, he just sort of sits there and takes it and just sort of like, well, I guess I deserve that. And then we never see him again. Like,
I love it. It is, you're right. It's unlike any other, like, there's plenty, like you said, plenty of silly, but that moment is unlike anything else. And it's one of the few moments that I like, hit the 15 seconds back to watch again. Cause I thought it was so funny. Like, I don't know why that like really got me, but it really got me when I was watching this.
Yeah. It's very fun. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's cool. I mean, all the Seatopia stuff is interesting. I actually end up really liking what they do with it, because they have you kind of have the direct action from these two agent characters that you can do some fun Home Alone antics with them, of getting beat the fuck up and hit in the face with a plane that makes them really bloody,
or thrown out of a truck.
Yeah, like they get to get beat up on, basically. But I think the movie makes it very clear that like the Seatopians are the villains of the movie, but like you're not meant to like hate them or whatever. It's like they're retaliating because of nuclear testing that's fucking with them, which is classic Godzilla stuff. That it's just like, here's the way that nuclear weapons are affecting our environment and our world, and we've got sort of a fictional, creative, imaginative fantasy way to tell that story, and so it ends up, I think, being kind of nice that like the movie's just sort of like, we're not out to like destroy Seatopia. We get rid of their monsters, beat them back, and then they're like not going to bother us anymore, hopefully, until we fuck with them again. Like, I don't know, I kind of appreciate that. Like, they can live, maybe not in peace, but like live at least like, try not to bother each other. Like, I appreciate that. I think it's kind of a fun take on this.
Yeah, the other aspect of the Seatopian agents is that is very much, they're very right out of John Fukuda's 60s spy spoofs. He made two, one called Iron Finger, the other one is called Goldeneye, and they made them sort of like in between his first two Godzilla movies, Abira Horror of the Deep and Son of Godzilla. So in between those two Godzilla movies, he makes these two spy spoofs, which are very over the top, have a lot of crazy action, and they don't take the spy plots seriously at all. And here he is, like 5, 6 years later, and he's making a Godzilla movie with a spy plot, and you can definitely see the roots of that. I mean, they're both of those are also on the Criterion Channel. So if you have the Criterion Channel, I do recommend checking them out. I think that his films, he also did, what was it, the Secret of the Telegion? I think that's also him.
Okay. I have not seen any of these actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
I don't know
Fascinating.
I don't know that one, but the spy ones I have been very interested to watch.
And
Yeah.
because it's sort of like, he doesn't have to deal with, giant monsters and, aliens or anything. It's just spies doing wacky spy stuff. And like I think the one, it's 100 Bullets something. It's like whatever the original Japanese title has absolutely nothing to do with the American title, which is not surprising. But
Sure.
but this is something that he has experience with. So the fact that he's writing this screenplay, I can sort of see him going to the well of saying, well, I know how to do this sort of thing pretty well. And
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
if I'm going to be spending time with these human characters before any other monsters show up, because was it Godzilla doesn't show up until Jet Jaguar actually goes, to get him, and then we're finally on Monster Island. It's like we're already an hour in or something like that. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I almost feel like they threw in these atomic tests are also affecting things on Monster Island, just so that the audience wouldn't say, "Where's Godzilla? Why
Yeah.
has Godzilla shown up yet?"
Right. That's so true. Because most of that beginning is just like stock footage that they're throwing together anyway, with a few new shots of like the new Godzilla suit, and then also like Anguirus falling into a crevice.
Poor guy. They killed him for no reason. He's not dead, but they killed him for no reason. He's not even in this
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's definitely why they did it. Because then it's just like, okay, now we can hold off on showing him for a while.
I was really happy for some spy stuff. I mean, going
Yeah,
into this
it's fun.
podcast, I never would have expected that one of my takeaways would be that I really like when spy stuff is happening in Godzilla movies.
Mhm.
But I actually do think it is a great way to keep tension and action in the movie without necessarily having to like just add more monster fights, which at this point in the production where they don't have a ton of budget and they can't just retake monster fight shots, this makes so much sense to me as like a solution to that. So I was super stoked to see spy stuff. If there were anything that I'm sort of critical about, it's that like I agree with you, Derek. I like that the Cetopians are generally presented as like they're just retaliating. We're not supposed to think that they're like like a bad, evil civilization. It's not like they worship Megalon to destroy the Earth or anything like that. But the explanation of like there's like no mystery whatsoever or no question whatsoever as to why they're doing the thing they're doing.
That's fair.
And like that's fine. The explanation makes sense. Nuclear testing pissed them off and
now they
threatens
want
their
a,
existence.
now they want
But
a
like
robot
there's
army.
zero
Of course.
but there's right. But there's like zero mystery that I think could have been baked in a little bit.
That's fair.
But I mean, it's fine. It's also not what they were trying to do. So
Yeah. But also, the action stuff is really fun. I like the car chases are really well done. I love when the cars are going down the stairs. Like, it's so funny.
What? The car chase down the stairs was so funny to me.
Yeah.
All the places this car goes, I'm like, damn.
And then only to get just stolen at the end. It's such a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the stuff they do with cars, all the chase stuff, the truck that they get trapped in at a certain point. I want to know that had to have just been a hydraulic platform they kept having them like sliding on,
Oh,
right?
definitely,
like
definitely, yeah.
there's so much filming of them just sliding around in there,
And
which
getting their
to
heads
me is
bonked, and it's like this kid is just like somebody was mad at this kid.
yeah. What's terrible is it's like endlessly entertaining to me. They could have just had them sliding around and bonking and like throwing the truck prop, all over the place, and I would have been perfectly pleased. I could watch it for hours.
Yeah.
There's this moment that I noticed at this time where you sort of have this echo of in the original Godzilla, the first time we see Godzilla is when he peeks his head over the mountain, and all of a sudden people
Hmm.
are like, "What the heck is that?"
Yeah.
Mm.
Megalon gets a similar moment at the dam.
Yeah,
Ooh,
it's
yeah.
good. It's good. It's like really tense too, because you know they're trapped in the crate, and you know
Hmm.
that like if he's about to either come attack them or break the dam, and
Right.
like I think it's played really really well, and it is genuinely kind of frightening when he just like I mean it is kind of funny like not only does he break the dam, then he just like goes toppling over like with the water. This is like oh you didn't intend to do that, did you, buddy? Actually, you're a little clumsy.
See, that's what I'm saying. He's like a little bit dumb.
Yeah, yeah. But then he like spikes the crate like a fucking volleyball after it falls. I don't know if I get that, but I liked watching it.
And it flies to the air and lands on the ground, and and Goro and Roku are a little stunned, but no broken bones. They don't have to go to the
Nope.
hospital.
It's so funny. It's so funny.
Hiroshi just shows
So
up and said,
funny.
"Hey guys, wake up!" And like, okay, what? You know,
I know. It's so funny that in the same movie where you can like throw a plane at a guy's face and have it explode in blood and like Gigan like slice open Godzilla's shoulder and there be a fountain of blood. These guys don't have a bruise or a scrape.
They're fine. It's a padded metal crate, obviously.
Yep.
I also love that Goro actually, when they first wake up in that, he has to bang on the floor and said it's made of metal, and it's like, I think you could probably tell that by looking, but thanks for confirming this.
Oh my god, it's so silly. This movie's so silly. I love it.
And they're like, there are so many things about the Cetopians' plan where it's like, okay, I would like to know at what because they would have had to have figured this out before they decided we're going to open this crevice in the earth and we're going to send our agents to get this robot so that he can guide our monster to Tokyo so we can topple Tokyo because we're mad at Tokyo. At what point, and then we're going to have to kidnap the inventor and bring him in a truck to the crevice so that he can be brought down to Seatopia and make a robot army for them because they don't have time to figure out how to do that. I love how
Yeah.
there's so many points to this where it's like, okay, could we have simplified this a little? No? Okay. Let's just
Right.
go with whatever the first idea was. Hey, I've got a great idea, and they just sort of ran with it. I also wonder, like, there are these various things that they do with, like, they find sand next to Jet Jaguar before he turns around. It's like these Utopians
Yeah.
have apparently, presumably, been above ground for a while. Why are they still tracking sand from 40 kilometers down in the Earth's crust around this laboratory?
Man, I don't know.
Can I say I like completely forgot that the sand was a thing that they like found and then like solved and researched and stuff? I totally forgot until you mentioned it.
Yep.
That they fully examined and researched all that.
I mean, and there's the button that he pulls off, and then
Yep.
they compare and contrast it.
Crush
It's
it.
the same material. So,
Right.
and I love this. The Cetopians have created their own sun inside the Earth.
You have to,
Yeah, yeah. Look, Seatopia, pretty cool. I love the map painting of like what Seatopia is supposed to look like with like the
Always.
Easter Island head and everything.
Mhm.
And an actual connection to Easter Island itself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Very
that sent me
cool.
on a full rabbit, like down a full rabbit hole, completely unrelated to this movie. But the fact that they specifically connected it back to Easter Island, I was like, whoa,
So funny.
here I go.
Yeah. It's very cool. Seatopia seems like a cool place. Would love to spend more time there and hang out with Robert Dunham specifically.
Definitely. Apparently, his second in command, because during this interview in Steve Rifle's book, he talks about how a lot of the foreigners in these Godzilla movies were
Mhm.
actually Turkish, because there
Oh.
were a lot of Turkish people who had settled in Japan for one reason or another, and apparently
Right.
his second in command, who doesn't have a line, I don't think his second in command in
I don't think
Zootopia
so.
has a line, but apparently he's Turkish, and they hung out and had a
Interesting.
good time. So
Aw,
yeah,
I love that.
yes.
I love that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I do want to talk just about just like the fight stuff in general, because I feel like there's so many just like wild moments in the monster fights in this movie.
hmm
Like,
Are we just talking about the final 20 minutes, or
I
because
mean,
the
in general, just all the monster fights in it throughout it, because all of them are kind of crazy in this movie, like
uh,
in really fun ways.
I love how, Jet Jaguar is he's supposed to be taking Megalon straight to Tokyo to stop it, and he has to stop along the way to destroy a dam and then get attacked by the
Hmm.
military.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I love that
Mm-hmm.
the military, like there's one guy who shows up, like the leader of the commander of the military, who when they actually have the plan to get control of Jet Jaguar back, he's like, sounds like a good idea, let's do it. There's nobody else. No, there are no other, we don't cut to Tokyo. We don't have any members of government. We don't have any scientists being consulted. It's just,
Nope.
that sounds like a good plan. And you're the guy who made this robot that is currently acting rogue. So yes, let's do this.
It's so
It
funny.
is. You know what? That is exactly, Derek. You said early on, like it feels empty, and I was sort of like, yeah, I guess it does. But it's those moments where like
Yeah.
they haven't even filled a room with extras to just
Yeah.
like look important.
Mhm.
That it really does show how empty
It's
it is.
very funny. It's very funny. Yeah.
And
I
I did
like that.
notice because it was pointed out, the fact that when like the planes are dive bombing on Megalon and Megalon
Mhm.
is swiping them out of the air, that's actually Geigen's claw because they're just using
Oh my
clips
God.
from the
Yeah.
movie you just saw a year ago.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I've defended a lot of stock footage stuff in these movies because I don't think it's a big deal. I do think it is a little bit it is a little bit much to have extensive scenes from the movie that literally just came out 1 year ago. Like that's a little that like I could see getting annoyed about that specifically.
Yeah. Well, and every time we talk about it, we talk about the how.
Right. Like how is it being
So
utilized?
yeah, exactly.
Like I don't mind them reusing like mazer cannons shooting at Megalon or whatever. Like that's
Sure.
fine. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't need to just repeat the Godzilla Gigan fight that just happened. That's a little bit weird.
The connection that I made to that was because, there is a lot of talk about how much stock footage from like the
Right.
60s movies is reused in these. I
Mhm.
always think about Roger Corman and his Poe films.
Mhm.
His first Poe film, In Fall of the House of Usher, ends with a fire. It ends with the house being burned down. So Roger Corman went out and found out the barn that was going to be razed. So he said, "Can I film the rafters being going up in flames and coming down?" And he loved that shot so much that he used it in the next Poe movie, and then one after that, and then one after that. And it wasn't until they came out on video and people could watch them one after another that people started saying, "Roger, I'm seeing those rafters again." And
That's exactly what Derek was saying last episode, where he was like, people weren't watching these the same way that we are now, where you might marathon them or you can watch them, you're not waiting years, you're not waiting however long.
Right.
Like people aren't sitting there tracking it in that same way.
and then of course you have the whole final sequence when which starts with Jet Jaguar and Megalon going at it, and then Gigan joins the fight, and then Godzilla joins the fight, and that has to be pretty much all new, I think.
Yeah. I think other than some Godzilla versus Gigan stuff that they repeat, the majority of that stuff is definitely new. Um, I love the relationships between the monsters in this final fight because like are you talking about like the Bebop and Rocksteady is like the vibe of Megalon and Gigan, like just besties
Yeah.
and bros who are kind of dumb. But I also love Godzilla and Jet Jaguar as a pair because it's like Jet Jaguar like looks up to Godzilla as this like hero that he worships. It feels like there's a bit when like Godzilla shows up and Jet Jaguar is like looking up at him like so excitedly, like and that's like the body language that the actor's doing. And like, there's the famous like Godzilla shaking Jet Jaguar's hand. Like that's an image that is very well used, but it's like the context for it is that Jet Jaguar like runs up and excitedly grabs Godzilla's hand. Be like, "Oh my God, it's so nice to meet you. Oh my God, I love you. You're my hero. You're my number one. I'm your number one fan." Like that is the vibe of it. Which I love that. I love that is their vibe.
It's so funny. Like this robot that like kind of only had a personality when its mission became what it was is like a huge fan of Godzilla.
Yeah.
Like either that is like such an instantaneous or inherent piece of like what his personality would become based on what he realizes he needs to do, or he was programmed to love Godzilla, which I also really like.
Either works for me.
And the interesting thing about this is, since I wasn't, watching all of them, chronologically up to this point, I know there's a definite point where Godzilla unambiguously becomes a hero and a protector of Earth. So that when, Goro goes to the military leader and says, "Okay, we're going to get my robot so we can go to Monster Island and get Godzilla to help out," the military is like, "Yeah, that's a great idea," because
right.
He's our backup when we fail, and we clearly have at this point. I love that for that first moment when you just see Megalon towering over Jet Jaguar, and then he grows and becomes, same size as Megalon, and then they have their fight, and they fight for a good long while.
They do.
And Jet Jaguar holds his own. He has some, he has some setbacks, but he's doing fine. He probably could have taken out Megalon by himself if Gigan hadn't shown up and double teamed him. And there's this one moment where like you just sort of see Jet Jaguar look from one to the other and realize, okay, I think I'm a little out of my element here. Where are you, Godzilla? And and you cut to Godzilla, and he's still swimming. He's still halfway. He hasn't even made it to land yet. And even when he makes it to land, it takes him a while to cross the land. So he has this sort of rousing, here I am, I'm coming to save the day. And then you cut back, and they've Gigan has Jet Jaguar on the ground, and he's like, come on, and Megalon comes in and kicks him in the and it's like, yeah, Jet Jaguar was he's really taking a beating, but he never gives up.
Yeah.
And I also, when they have that moment where Godzilla shows up, and then you sort of have those one-on-one battles, and then they sort of have their moment where they get encircled in that ring of fire, and they have to figure out how to get out. And I'm sure the suit actors were like, okay, and you're going to turn off the fire soon, right? Because but and then they sort of swap partners. Then you have Jet Jaguar and Gigan going at it, Godzilla and Megalon going at it, and it's sort of like everybody gets a chance to wallop on each other, which I love that. And I think that they sort of have a little bit of fun with it in the Mystery Science Theater version, where they basically treat it like they're wrestling color commentators.
Hell yes.
I love that. Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where like there's a moment where like Tom Silver says, "Oh, I know I should be excited and scared and all, but all I can think of is sweaty Japanese guys."
Yeah.
I've probably said that before.
But truly though, I think the actors really kill it in this, because
they do.
The fight, like this might be a wild thing to say. I actually don't know. But I think in terms of just pure fun, I think this might be my favorite like Godzilla fight sequence in the Showa era. Because like I think that the monsters have such strong personalities, and they're so anthropomorphized at this point that they do just feel like, and there's so much camaraderie, like I said, that they do just feel like almost like cartoon characters in live action fighting, like in a good way. I think like there's just so many of these little moments. There's like the moment when like Megalon and Gigan are like trying to like taunt them, and Megalon's like slapping his butt in front of them, and then as soon as like as soon as Jet Jaguar starts flying, they're both like, what the fuck? Like they can they both have that facial expression. Like all of that obviously just communicated through suit acting. Like there's so many little moments like that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like, okay, we had them on the ropes, and wait, you could do
Right.
that? Who told me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, nobody told me you could do that.
Right, right. And it's like, and like there's another point when like Gigan is like holding Jet Jaguar with his like knife claw to Jet Jaguar's throat, like threatening
Yeah.
Godzilla that he's gonna slit his throat. And I'm like,
Yeah.
never seen that type of shit in one of these movies before. Like it's just so it's just again all performed without any dialogue through these like heavy, ridiculous suits, and they're communicating it all so well.
I do think that this, like, two things. One, I don't think that's a crazy thing to say, because I do think that this specific style of fighting that they're doing is like relatively new in the line of these fights, right? And I think
Yeah.
they started it a little bit earlier than this, but they're just better at it in this movie in particular.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of it is that communication. I think what I would say is like this is probably my favorite like monster to monster communication depiction we've seen
Yeah.
throughout the whole Showa era. I think it is like so spot, like I've struggled with certain ways that they've done it before, and they've tried a bunch of different ways. And the ways that I've enjoyed tend to be ways that are sort of like, well, if they can't really pull it off, this was a cute way to do it. But this is really them saying like, no, we can pull it off. Like we can
Yeah.
communicate all these feelings and all these sort of instructions and teamwork and taunts and all this sort of stuff purely through like physicality, and it's like so impressive to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is now like my standard for this era of like monster to monster communication.
And there are also moments where, I mean, for all the issues they had with not having a lot of time and not having a lot of money and having to really count the frames, essentially, a feet of film that they were allowed to shoot.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Fukuda gets some really nice shots, like the overhead shot of Jet Jaguar and Godzilla standing over Megalon, who's been defeated.
Mhm.
They hold on that for a good long while, because it's like, oh, this is really moment of satisfaction. Yeah, we got this guy, the two of us. And they're also, and then there's, they actually, they have the final handshake. Basically, they have the two handshakes. There's the handshake when Godzilla shows up and Jet Jaguar, runs to him and they shake hands. And then there's the handshake at the end. Job well done. Well met, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. But no, I think so if you're saying about like kind of the direction and the cinematography, like there are moments in this movie that like look really cool. Like the Ring and Fire sequence, this is more editing, I guess, but like it's so surreal when like Godzilla and Jet Jaguar are like not sure what to do when they're trapped there. And like it's edited so bizarrely, like the way that it cuts around them. Like it's so, but I mean, if you're trying to like amp up tension without having much as you can film, I think it's really effective. But then there's like little things, like there's a shot of the helicopter that then like pans out and then becomes like a monitor screen in a completely different scene.
Ooh.
Which is just wild.
Stuff's
Like it's
always
really
cool.
It's really cool. And I know like the cinematographer on this was Ozuru Ozawa, who like he worked on the original Godzilla movie as a cameraman, but also like he shot a Kurosawa movie. He shot The Bad Sleep Well, which is like a noir film that Kurosawa did. To shoot a noir movie, you have to kind of be particularly skilled. So like there's skilled people like working on this, and I think you really, even though they were working on these really extreme constraints, there's these flashes of like ingenuity and artistry that like whenever they can do it, they will do it.
Yeah.
I didn't mention the score to this. It's the same composer who did Hedorah, which I think you can tell without sort of tripping where the music is. But like, there's one, I don't remember if we heard this in Hedorah or not, but when Godzilla shows up, there's like this like I don't know what instrument that is.
Oh, it's a Jew's harp. It's referred to as a Jew's harp.
Jew's harp.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're sort of like
harp.
boing, boing, boing.
Yes.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is. And it's such a weird sound to hear for Godzilla, but I love it. It's such a cool entrance music.
I also love that. I mean, there was a range of music, like the very beginning, there's like this very foreboding kind of music. And then once they rescue Roku and they're in the car, there's like jaunty music and, and sometimes it just feels like they didn't know exactly how to score. They didn't have the exact right piece of music for this scene. So they just went with what they had. But like you say, there are moments during Godzilla's approach where it's just sort of like, okay, are we ready for a hoedown now? Because Godzilla is ready to hoe down.
Yeah. I mean, it does feel like they've sort of remixed certain pairings of music and sequences you're sort of used to. Because the one that really stood out to me was when all the military vehicles are like getting, like, your obligatory, like, here's your line of military vehicles, here's your lining up of cannons and stuff. Usually that's very much like a march type of music. In this one, it's not that at all. It's like kind of like almost like rock guitar-ish sort of vibes, which was like kind of refreshing to me. It really made that like scene that I've seen 1,000 times feel new.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, can't not talk about the Godzilla slide kick.
Oh,
like his
yes.
whole slide on his tail. One of my favorite production photos is I'm just setting it in the I'm setting right now. One of my favorite production photos is just seeing them filming him do like the slide tail kick, and he's just the Godzilla suit just hanging on a piece of wood attached to a string. It's so cute. It's so cute.
And that's this shot, that shot of him, gliding on his tail. It was so famous. It was featured in the opening credits of Mystery Science Theater pretty much from the moment they had that episode for like years. It was like when they would have a cut to the theater to show what they were watching, it was that shot. And then they cut to the Joel and the bots reacting to it. Because it was like, I mean, when it happens in the movie, they're like, "Oh my God, that's amazing," And then he does it a second time. I'm like, "Okay, we've seen this, but okay." But yeah, it's just it's one of those iconic moments, similar to Gamera on doing the parallel bars, where it's a goofy thing that they're doing with a monster suit, and it immediately tells you what kind of movie and what kind of show you're watching.
It's great. I love it. It's goofy, but it's so fun.
In basically any other movie, it would be so wild to not have mentioned really at all the new monster's powers. But in this one, the fight is almost entirely like appealing because it's wrestling. That the fact that Megalon has like lightning and like shoots bombs out of its mouth and like has all these powers like almost doesn't like register once you've seen like the actual cool choreography type stuff. And they're cool powers. So funny.
So good.
And of course, there's the moment where he spits out the napalm thing, and it goes back in his mouth, and he just
oh my God, fucking idiot! I love it.
That's what I'm saying.
Like when you're lying prone on your back, you do not spit up in the air because where is it going to come down? That's that's physics, man.
Everyone learns it for the first time at some point, and Megalon unfortunately spits napalm.
Oh my God.
So good. I mean, and you mentioned the like the lightning that comes out of his head, which which they did to match, I think, Ghidorah's lightning, so that they could have the footage of him zapping Tokyo, because they couldn't have any shots of Megalon stomping Tokyo. Nope. But if we give him this sort of crackling laser thing, great, good. Check that off.
Yeah, I didn't question it. You got like a big old antenna on your head, so
exactly. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, God, it rules. It rules.
And I also love that this is one of those movies where like they cut out not only the blood, because like there's that moment where Gigan flies past Godzilla and opens up his shoulder and the blood goes spurting out. There's a shot in the truck where you have the Utopian agent and the two truck drivers who have basically accepted this job. We're going to transport a cube from this place to this place. We're going to get 100,000 yen or whatever the amount is. No questions asked. And in the cab right behind them is a whole bunch of nudie pictures.
Yes.
Which are cut out of the Mystery Science Theater version, which are cut out of that 79-minute version.
I think so, yeah.
But like if you watch it on Criterion or I guess HBO Max, they have the original version.
Yep.
They're right there, and it's like
big Playboy covers, amazing, wild, and they spent a lot of time in that truck too, so you can get a good look at them.
Yep.
It's wild.
Yep.
It's almost
so
like
funny.
I think there's a similar shot in Dark Star, John Carpenter's Dark Star, where like there's obviously, because if you've got four guys up in space and they're gonna have their Playboys up on the wall,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
where they just sort of have to, for certain home video releases, they sort of buzzed it out so you can't actually see what's back there. But
So funny.
So
Yeah.
funny.
So good. Yeah, and I think it's interesting that the movie ends with Jet Jaguar being like, well, he's reverted back to being a mindless robot until another adventure arises that means he has to go back into action and become sentient again. It's just like the idea that you could just like turn your sentience on and off depending on the situation. It's just
God,
sort of
wouldn't that
just
be
interesting.
nice?
Right?
this
This isn't really that important. I'm just gonna go automaton.
I don't know if you ever have discussed the Godzilla Fest shorts in connection with these movies.
Not yet. I definitely want to do something with them at some point. But we have not discussed them on the podcast. I don't think Doug has seen any of them.
Because I will say I love the return of Jet Jaguar that they did for the 50th anniversary. And it's him and Godzilla teaming up to battle a monster or two, and it's always a joy.
That's cool.
I love that they have, they said, hey, there's this character that we created 50 years ago and haven't done a single thing with since. I mean, I know that, like, I think he's been in comics or other media, but no other movies. They and he's not going to be in the MonsterVerse. So who knows? Maybe at some point. But
I'd love to see him in the MonsterVerse.
it's one of these things where he's such a singular character, and the fact that they only used him in this one movie, I think, does make him a special character. That he wasn't going to go off and have solo adventures, but he's not showing up in the next movie just because I don't want to spoil it for Doug, but I mean, you do know what the next movie is called, right?
No.
Okay.
We'll save that. Yeah.
I thought about it for a second and was like, I don't think I do actually.
You probably could guess, but don't think about it too much. It makes it more fun.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 It's cool. Jet Jaguar is a friend. He's a great guy. Love him to death. He's cool. He's a cool dude. I really like this movie. I think it's such a great time.
Punch.
Like you said, I think it's fun, and I think it's cute in a good way.
Yeah,
like the kind of dumb bro monsters and the hero trio. Like, it's all good and cute and fun and a joy.
Yeah, I do like the fact that they're basically the only witnesses. Goro, Hiroshi, and Roku are the only witnesses to this grand battle, which is going to determine the fate of the nation or even of the whole world. Because I think,
so true. Yeah, it is. It's cool. It's cool. It's a really fun time. I really greatly enjoy this movie.
Mm-hmm.
We do have some cover art this time. Doug, this was I think specifically requested by you. So our friend Andy Vanderbilt, you heard him on the Hedorah episode. He did art for our King Kong versus Godzilla episode. He did another piece of art this time.
Insert the cat heavy breathing gif here as I anticipate this art.
I thought you were actually telling me to insert something into the edit.
No, everyone imagine it in your mind, and that's what I look like right now.
Please don't give me more work to do, Doug. Jesus Christ.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Look at Godzilla.
Look at his little belly. I love Godzilla's belly in it. He looks so good. I love all the shapes.
Andy, you know us so well.
Yeah, truly. Yes. I feel like you made that Godzilla look like that for me specifically. It was like a fat Godzilla. But yeah, I think you saw Andy had done at one point the sort of, what do you call it? The rubber
hose animation.
Yeah. And you were like, can you get him to do that a piece of art for a movie? And I was like, yeah, sure. And he picked it for this one, and I think it works really well. And it's a really cool black and white piece that looks like old school rubber hose style animation. It's great. It's so good.
Yeah. It's so good. Everyone's so cute. Look at Megalon.
I love Jet Jaguar's big smile too. It's great.
I know, right? Oh, Andy, this is so good.
I'll have links to all of Andy's stuff in the show notes, but you can see this on glitterjaw.com. You can see it on your podcast apps. You can see it on our Glitterjaw socials. You'll probably be able to see it on Andy's social media too, I'm sure. We're going to be sharing it. It's great. I love it. Please check it out. We've got a whole cover art gallery on our glitterjaw.com website if you want to look at it big. So please do that. It's great. Thank you, Andy. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Predictions, Doug, for the Showa era. We've only got 2 movies left on the Showa era. Do you think we're going to see any of these kaiju characters again in this era?
I mean, I feel like Gigan is if I had to bet on one of them, Gigan's probably the one I'm betting on. It feels weird to make that Megalon suit and not use it again unless it was actually that cumbersome to use. So I guess I would sort of say Gigan's probably my first thought. Megalon would probably be my second thought, and then I can't fathom why they wouldn't use Jet Jaguar again. So it's so strange to me that can't even be on the table.
What about in any other era outside the Showa era? Do you think you're going to see these guys?
Oh,
again?
Interesting. Well, I don't think I have any reason. I don't think I've ever been given a reason to think that Gigan, like to associate Gigan with anything but this era. Mm-hmm. And I say it that way because Gigan's the monster, like one of the monsters that I had some familiarity with just like through cultural osmosis. I feel like if we weren't so deep into some of the other eras, I would have said that Megalon is a good monster to bring back based on like aesthetics and theming and all that sort of stuff. But we're so deep into them that I'm going to say no, probably neither one of these ends up outside Showa, which is strange.
Okay. What about the Cetopians? Do you think we're going to see any like variation on them either in the Showa era or like adapted, not counting like comics and stuff, but like in films? Do you think we're going to see like a Cetopians show up in like Heisei or Millennium, in those at some point?
As much as I would love my Emperor Antonio spin-off film, the biopic, I'm not expecting to see the Cetopians again.
Cool.
And wasn't this Robert Dunham's last film for Toho? I think it was.
It might have been. I think you're right. Yeah. Dang.
Devastating.
What a big one to go out on, though, man.
I know. It's such a bummer, though, because they had him in less and less clothing each time.
That's all I have prediction-wise.
Okay.
Craig, do you have anything you want to ask Doug about his like Godzilla knowledge or predictions for future Godzilla things?
Well, I'm curious because you say this is your 32nd. Out of how many are there now?
I think 38 or 39.
38.
So we still have the last 2 Showa era movies, the last Heisei movie, the last Millennium movie, and then anything else I think you've seen already.
I remembered a Showa era title that we absolutely have not seen yet. So I know that there is a Terror of Mechagodzilla movie coming up.
Cool.
Okay.
I don't know what the other one is, though.
Well, there you go. I guess my question for you then would be, do you think there's going to be another film with a gay couple as its central characters?
Good question.
I feel like I must adopt the sentiment of one Merrily from Fear Coded and say that if you try hard enough, there's always a gay couple in the movie. So absolutely.
Oh man. Oh boy. Cool. The next movie we're actually doing on the schedule right now is Godzilla -1, which we're going to do next month. Doug has seen that movie.
I
obviously
do know this
saw
one.
that very recently, so I don't have predictions questions because I'm sure you remember that movie pretty well.
I have, yeah. I normally don't like. I didn't rewatch any of the movies I had already seen before we covered them, but I have watched -1 more than once, so I know that one pretty well.
Have you seen the black and white version?
I actually saw the black and white version first.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the way that I was able to catch it was to see minus color first. So I actually had only seen it that way until I watched it. I think they did a re-release of it at some point, and I was able to see it in color afterward. So my formative sort of viewing of that was in black and white.
I did not know that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm excited to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Craig, thank you so much for joining us with this. This is just a fun time.
Thank you for having me. I'd love to be back anytime you can fit me in.
Yeah, absolutely. If people want to find you and all your work, where's the best place to do that?
Best place to do that is on Crooked Marquee. I write articles generally about films that are having anniversaries. This month, I wrote about 2 films that were turning 80.
Ooh.
Back in 1946, I wrote about Ingmar Bergman's first film, Crisis, and I also wrote about one called Sylvie and the Ghost, or Sylvie et le Fantôme, which
Nice.
was a fantasy film made the same year as Jean Cocteau's Beauty and the Beast, and I think it's every bit as equal.
Very cool.
And I'm
Nice.
currently working. I try to usually have at least 2 articles in there a month. I also write the monthly Full Moon Features column for Werewolf News, which is werewolfnews.com. I've been doing that for oh good Lord, 10 years now almost. Yeah, it's
Oh,
yeah.
Oh wow.
I've
That rules.
yeah, it's been quite a journey with that. And I'm also coming up on the 20th anniversary of me watching every werewolf movie I can get my hands on. I started in the April of 2008, and
Nice.
I did it, one a month for a good long while. Had to take some breaks because after a while you sort of run out of werewolf movies that are good.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But I have quite a few in my collection where I've watched them to review them and put it up on the shelf, and I have no desire to ever pull it back down off the shelf.
Oh sure.
But I've seen like American Werewolf in London and The Howling like a dozen times each, that kind of thing. So the ones that I love are the ones that I return to a lot, and I always feel like the other one I'm doing right now is Paul Naschy. He's a Spanish, a writer, filmmaker
Oh.
who loved monster movies, and so he broke into movies by writing scripts about monsters that he would then star in. So he's been the Wolfman, he's been a vampire, he's been a mummy, he basically any kind of creature he feel like, what, it would be fun for me to dress up as this for a couple months. So he sort of carried on that tradition. And so I'm working on that on Werewolf News, going through his older films because they're now getting these really great spiffed up editions from Vinegar Syndrome and Shout Factory, and I love that they're getting more respect than they ever have in a long time. Similar to the way the Godzilla films, or when they released all the Showa movies, and now they've got Godzilla versus Biollante with this 4K, and it's like, who would have ever thought?
Right? Yeah. It's definitely a real renaissance for celebrating this stuff. Well, yes, definitely check all of that out. Thank you again so much. Doug, if people want to find you and everything you're doing, where's the best place to do that?
You can find me all over the place at Ikkybooley, ICKYBOOLEY. You can also listen to me on a weekly podcast with Derek called Walloping Web Snappers, where we deep dive into every Spider-Man cartoon ever made. You can listen to a podcast Derek and I do every so often at this point called Falling with Style, which was our precursor to this one. It was a Pixar movie marathon. We're actually back twice this year, at least for that, because of Hoppers, which came out recently, and Toy Story 5, which comes out in the summer. And then you can listen to me on Novel Gaming, where my friend Katie and I catch up on the books, video games, and sometimes other media we've been enjoying lately. What about you, Derek?
Sure, you can find me in most places at Derek B. Gale. My other podcasts that Doug did not mention include Gimmicks, where David and I look at high concept experimental structure breaking episodes of TV, and Lee Carvalho's Potting Challenge, where Tommy and I look at the Simpsons tie-in video games. I also have articles on Kaiju United. There's one that I wrote on the Showa Toku TV series Akumizer 3. So if you like all of the sort of like Toku TV hero conversation we had here, I have a whole article on the history of that show. I might have another new one out by the time this episode comes out. I'm working on a Godzilla related one. I don't want to plug it yet because it depends on how quickly I can write it. So it might be out by the time this episode comes out. We will find out because it depends on how my next week goes time wise. But yes, that's all on kaijuunited.com. If you'd like to find other queer creators who talk about media, check out the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective at glitterjaw.com. Follow us on Blue Sky at Glitterjaw and on Instagram at GlitterjawPods. We also have a new show I want to plug real quick, Little Dead Aliens, that is covering X-Files. So we've talked about some horror paranormal stuff. If you want to have a podcast that talks about X-Files Monster of the Week episodes, that then pairs them with horror movie recommendations related to those Monster of the Week episodes, Little Dead Aliens is your show. That's the new one hosted by Ben on Glitterjaw. Join our Patreon at patreon.com/wallopingwebsnappers. That's the name of the Spider-Man show Doug and I do together, but that supports everything we do, including Screonk, any of the Patreon bonus episodes we mentioned, like that eventually upcoming Zone Fighter episode, will be on that Patreon for as little as $1 a month. We also have a Discord if you want to talk to fans through that. Email us at screonkpodcast@gmail.com. Rate, review, subscribe on all your podcast platforms, and join us on April 13th for the Academy Award-winning 2023 film, Godzilla -1.
Lovely.
I can't wait.
See you then.
Bye.
空に輝く真っ赤な太陽ジェッジャガージェッジャガー僕らのジャガー地球の危ないその時は悪者どもに猛烈パンチゴジラとジャ